for the comp, and the comp entails you fishing with that person for the day, one-on-one. You can actually bring two people out on the boat, is that right, Stu?
Yep.
And generally the guys go for like, some of the ones that aren't maybe as good maybe go for like $600, and the real good ones go for about $2,000. But if you've got two guys, that's $1,000 each. For the dearest guys, so this guys want to win a Flathead Classic 6 years in a row. And you'll learn so much in that one day. If you go with any of the local charter boats here, you know, you're fishing, it costs you $700 a day or $600 a day for the two of you. So it costs a bit more, but you're not getting the competitive go hard, I want to win this competition sort of guy with you. Does that make sense? So they're going to fish a lot harder. So you learn a lot more, and you learn how the pace works to fish hard for flatties. This year, the advertising was terrible, and any of you guys could have got the best guy for $500 for the day, which is cheaper than going out with just a little broadwater boat, you know. And these guys have got nice boats, and the fishing starts at 6 and finishes at 4, so it's a big day too. So anyhow, that's been and gone now. But for next year, remember, okay, because the average price is $350.
So was Stewie the $20 special?
He was. Well, actually, he's in the midfield, and little faith they have in Stewie, but they know Stewie come second last year, so I thought he would have gone higher. But there was just no one there bidding. So unfortunately, it wasn't nothing like what it was. But to give you some idea, if you had one, or Stewie's offside that picked him, won $1,000 cash, and Stewie won a sounder. So, but last year there was a lot more money put into the field because it works on volume, and Stewie come second and got $2,000.
Yeah, we got a bit over $2,000 last year for coming second. So yeah,
the first was like $3,000. So it depends on how much money goes into the field. But if you remember the Top Gun event next year, I'd be getting your backsides down there and maybe do some bidding. Yeah, but anyhow, it's all good. Okay, but tonight we're going to teach you how to do it without having to do that. Okay, so Stu and I both love soft plastic fishing, right, Stu? As I was going to say before.
Yeah, it's probably the most popular fishing that we do type of thing, you know.
Yeah. So, and like I like casting on the flats, and I like trolling, as I was saying before. But I have to say, my biggest flathead in all my history of many flathead have been on little soft plastics. My biggest flathead too. Like I think I caught about 10 over 90 in my life, and probably I think 9 of those have been on little soft plastics. Not one over it. Well, you caught a 90 on hard body on castings top.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah. Yeah, I've caught more fish on big stuff, but it's just sign of the times. I think different years, different patterns. This year's definitely a small stuff pattern, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So when the season starts off, guys, say around June or July, when the flatties first start coming in, please remember to start off small, as Stewie's saying. So I'll be starting off on probably something in this category. I'll pass these two around. That'll be about where you start, Stu.
Yeah. So anything around like say 2 inch. Like 1.5 inch to 2 inch, like you do start pretty small. There's some 3 inch ones there, but they're a small profile. So
yeah, 2 inch to 2.5 is what I like. Yeah. And start off, and then in a rigged one about that size. There. They work really well too. So we're starting off with small plastic. So and then working our way through. So, but to cast these small plastics, your gear's lighter at the start. I still use small plastics in like Flathead Classic and comps as well, right through to the end of October, but predominantly it's all light stuff at the start, okay? So using, you got your light rod history? So using around about, what's that, 2,000?
Yeah, it's a 2,000. I think it's very thin braid, but I think it's about 14 pound. It's about 4 pound diameter of any other older style braid. So we still fish 3 and 4 pound braid, but it's all off diameter now. So if you can get a braid that's thinner or as thin as the other stuff with a higher breaking strain, of course you're going to go for that. So braid isn't braid anymore, but it just enables you to cast lighter weight further.
Yeah. The thickness of braid's not like it used to be. Yeah. But Stewie, you're right. So fish as light as you can start to cast those light ones. You're using little tiny jig heads on those, probably in that category there, Stewie, about 1/6.
Yeah, look, to be honest, like the weight on a jig head doesn't really change too much through the year or anything. It's not like you're going to throw a bigger plastic, so you're going to use more weight. It's more on the hook sizes to go with it. But 1/5, 1/6, something like that is definitely our biggest seller, and it's what we use the most of.
Yeah, and at that start of the season, we generally use about a 1/0 hook, 1 or a 1/0. So like generally everyone thinks 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, 5/0, but because the profile is so small, 1.0 would be the max you'd want to use. Maybe 2.0s, 1.6.
Yeah, I
is
still
not too
use
bad.
2 or 3.
2.0 is not too bad. Yep, and then so we're progressing now. So then the season now comes into say July, August, like it is now. Those bigger fish start to come around, and the bait size has increased a little bit, and they're now feeding on like a 3-inch plastic right at the moment as we speak. The little ones are still good, and I still are using the little ones, but the 3-inch profile is probably the more popular size. Although we went out yesterday and smacked a few, we got some good fish, and again the little small profile was working really good. So the rod's still the same. The rod doesn't change. As Stewie's will probably say, that's going to be his rod in the Flathead Classic, I dare say.
Yep. Yeah.
So 2.5 to 2 or 2.5 thousand size reel, maybe a 3 max. And braid wise, 4 to 15 pound, depending on the quality of the brand. And rods around about that 2 to 5 kilo. Okay, keeping it light. Thanks, Lockie. Cheers, mate. Any questions on that so far? Just trying to get the gears sorted out, then we're going to tell you how to do it, okay? So we'll go through all the plastics and what we use, different sizes, different colours, whatever. But so the next sort of gear we use is going to be around about, say, the end of September, which is Flathead Classic time. So by that time, the big girls have moved out to the front and they're in deeper water. So when we're in deeper water, we're using a lot bigger jig head. So we're using like something around maybe up to sort of 3/4 of an ounce or half ounce on average, and fishing maybe in 4 to 8 metres of water around jump in bar, seaway, whatever it might be. We still cast up in the shallow, but a lot of the time you fish in deep water and nearly teabag and vertically jigging. And in that case, the hook gets bigger, the size of the plastic gets bigger, and we might be using, things that are paddle tailed around that sort of size there, just like a 5 or 6 inch, and matching that up to like a 5.0, 1 ounce or 3/4 ounce, and vertically jigging the bottom. So this is going to progress to the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks. And that's how it sort of goes. And that one there, you cannot do on that little rod because the rod tip's a bit too light. But it's only a small specific time of that tide that you might do it, because once the tide's ripping, you can't fish heavy weights. It doesn't work. It's just really, really hard to fish fast running water, especially jumping pin seaway. So you can still cast the edge of the bank, but if they've moved off the bank into the deep, it's just really hard. And you'll need a more stout rod. I don't know if you had a heavy rod there, Stu.
Yeah. Something like that. Like I still run a 2.5, or Dougie runs a bigger reel, but
like this type of thing here.
they're a lot stiffer in the tip. So the reason being is bigger profile, more weight, and it's a bigger hook. So flatties they're all bone on the top of jaw, and you need to penetrate that. So you need something that the rod's not just going to bend and load up, and the hook isn't going to go in. You need to have something that's a bit more rigid. When you strike and feel that bite, it'll pull it through that bone.
Yeah, so your leader's gone from like 12 or 15 pound to sort of 20, 30 pound.
So what size rod is that?
That one there's about, I think it's about 16 pounds.
Yeah, around about that sort of 4 to 8 kilo or 4 to 7 kilo.
Yeah.
But you can still run 20 pound braid there, no problems. 15, I like to use no more than about 15 pound braid, but I will use 30, 25 pound leader in that deep water because it's snaggy. You get the odd 90 plus centimetre fish, and you get dewies and other bycatch as well. So that's your gear. So light rod, medium rod. How many guys here are fishing the Flathead Classic? Anyone who fishes the Flathead Classic? Quite a few of you are, yep. So for those of you who don't, does anyone not know what the Flathead Classic is? Okay, for you might not know. So it's a competition held on the Gold Coast here. It's been going now for 27 years or something, I think. And I think I fished nearly all of them. I maybe missed about 3 since its inception. And it's a great comp. It sounds expensive, but it's not expensive. So it's right, $375.
Something like that, yeah.
$375 to enter. And kids, I think about $150, 100 and something. If you go onto Gold Coast Sportfish Club website and Facebook page, you'll find it, all about it. And you get a bag of stuff worth about, I know, around $300 or $400 for your team. You fish 2-man or 3-man team on it, and that price is per each person. You get your meals at night time, and they have lots and lots and lots of prizes. So they always have prizes for the biggest and most and winners of the categories, but 90% of the prize is lucky draw. So you get a tag to go in out of the century, where they block it off into the precinct, and there's a lucky number on there. And every night they draw out like 5 names. So I think there's 24.
Something like that.
24 drawn out over sort of 3 or 4 nights, and then they have like last man standing. So there's 24 people sitting down, and the first guy gets pulled out, might win $800 worth of stuff or something like that, and then the last one will win a $40,000 boat or something. Okay, that's like a 400Ks worth of prize or something. That's where why you pay so much that goes into that. Okay, so anyway, it's a great comp, and that's on the 27th, 28th, and 29th September. Okay, be interested in giving it a go. So a lot of people might catch only 3 fish for the 3 days, but they might win a whatever, 5 grams of stuff. Okay, get back to the fishing. So, so we've got our rods sorted, guys. We've got our reels sorted. Our leader, Stewie, you like to use a bit lighter than I do.
Yeah, like the heaviest leader I'll ever use is 20, and that's it. But predominantly, like say about 10 to 14. Yeah, it just allows your lure to swim a lot better. It's a bit more finesse approach. And like these days, fish are getting a lot more pressure, so you're going to have to downsize everything going forwards.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I'm running 12-pound at still the moment, but our secret is to catching when you get a big fish on 12-pound, you got to run your drag pretty light. So a lot of people, when we're catching good-sized fish, we put it on Facebook. They say your drag's too light because it's always going ting 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 ting. It's because they're always doing big head shakes, and if your line's taut and you can't pull the drag out, when they go like that, it just rasps it straight off and they fall away. They'll bite through it. If you got a bit of light drag and they go like that, it'll just pull the line off the reel, but it won't shape the line as bad. So that's the secret. So if you get a real big one on, the first thing I do is drop my drag back. Keep the pressure on the whole time, but don't drop it back too much, but definitely drop it back. If you've got 20-pound line, 20-pound leader, or maybe even 16, which still shapes off on big fish, but it's a definite good chance. So those teeth under here and on the bottom, if you put your thumb in a flathead and they shake, even a little one, you know what I'm talking about. They just go straight through about 6 layers of skin. Those big ones go down and rip you apart like Saul. So my suggestion is probably as a safeguard 12 to 16 pound, I think would be the go. But if you fish in deep water, 20 to 30 pounds, okay? Yep. Leader length. Stu uses a long leader. We fish very differently. What size do you use, Stu?
Oh, I just go about an arm's width. Yep.
This is long arms for Stewie.
Yep.
And I'll go about a metre max, 800 to a metre. Probably said I catch fish over 800, maybe. Yes, I do. So that's your leader length. Do you tie a loop knot or do you tie directly to the lure or do you use a little fast clip? I fish a lot with fast clips because I like to change my lures quite regularly. It's very easy. I don't know, I think you got one in your bag, guys, but I'll pass one around so you know what it is. For those of you who don't know, you just want to grab one of those out of there, buddy. And I'll just throw a jig hook on there. So these are a new jig hook from S-Tackle. S-Tackle's a new guy on the block, local guy actually, so he's going to do it. And they're really good hooks, they're really good, very high UV. I'll grab a torch too, if someone can grab a torch down later on. Speaking to Masako. But we'll hit the UV torch on all this stuff later. It does play a big part in your fishing, but it's really, really good to have a UV head or UV somewhere on the bait. So this little attachment, what it does is if you hold it, you just quickly put the lure on like that and take it off, you just take it off like that. It's as quick as that. So that's the first method. Second method, Stuart ties his directly with a uni knot. So let's do.
Yeah, uni or a blood knot. I just tie straight on. I think it's probably the more secure option. Like fast attached clips are really good, but this time of year we get a lot of snotweed and stuff like that, and it is something for the weed to clump on. But yeah.
But they're good, yeah.
They are good to change.
Good for trolling as well.
Yeah.
And the other way is the loop knot. I like to do the loop knot, but as Stewie says, on a good fish, and I'm casting a lot if you continuously cast, you're not changing your leader length. Yeah, thanks, Masako. Good to see you got the message. Thank you. Stewie reckons, thanks, sir. Stewie reckons that they break. I don't have that problem very often, but they may do. Yeah.
Constant fatigue. Like if you've tied onto a hard object like the eye on a hook, and you've got slack tight the whole time when you're jigging your lure, it flattens the mono. And like have a look, tie one, have a couple casts, and guarantee it starts flattening out, and it's something for it to break on. Yeah.
I like to get more action on my lure. Up to you guys. Okay, next, so we've got our lures. We've got, I haven't got the lures yet, but we've got our leader down to tying it onto the lure. Jig head. So, I don't know how many rods you guys use when you go fishing, but I'd recommend at least 2. Stu and I take about 4 to 6 each.
Yeah.
And when there's 3 guys at the boat, it's like, hang on, where with the rods? But at the end of the day, I like to have at least, like Stu's the same too, I'll have 2 soft plastics, 2 different colours, 2 different types, slightly different type, maybe a vibe, and maybe a casting, like a casting hard body, something for flats or something like that, or a big lure rigged up. And if you do 2 or 3 casts in a spot, you know there's normally fish there and you haven't got something, you're quickly going to change to the next lure and give that a cast. Whether you cut it off if you've only got 1 rod, or grab the other rod, you need to not do more than about 3 or 4 casts in that one quick hole straight away. You should get fish straight away, that's what it boils down to, in that area. We may flog it for 1 drift. You can move it along a little bit further. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you go along a bit further, and you know it's definitely going to always be fish that little drain there, whatever. And if Stu's tried his lure and I've got similar, and none of us has got a fish, one of us is going to quickly change to another lure, because there should be a fish there. And if we get nothing on that lure, and we've gone through 4 different lures now, then we're out of there. Okay, we don't flog it anymore. So 1 drift, 3 to 4 different lures thrown out there on that drift. That's it. That's about it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, and like it'll come with time if you haven't done a lot of lure fishing and things like that, but you need to know what's not enough time and what's too much time. Like as Dougie said, you try a few, you give it a bit of a crack, you might have your favourites that have been working the previous weeks, you put all your eggs in those baskets and it's kind of a sure proven lure. If you don't catch a fish within a drift, they're either not there, and then you start looking at things, why aren't they there? Is there bait there? Is it dirty water? Is there heaps of floating weed that generally indicates that they've netted that area rather recently, which happens a lot?
That's really important.
Yeah.
So if you see all that straw weed floating over the surface, it's been netted in the last 24 hours. So
Yeah.
it's not going to be too crash hot. They might not have got all the fish, but they might be buried and just sulking.
Yeah.
They've had a bit of lead hitting the head or something.
Yeah.
So so we'd move on to the next area, and you have to understand, and you will work it out, guys. You need to understand that every sort of 15 or minutes or half an hour of a tide, whether it be in or out, you'll have worked out where your spots are. And that's all you'll give it in that spot, unless you catch some fish. If you catch some fish, you don't ever leave it, right? They might be stacked up in there for some reason and just keep catching them. But after you've done maybe 1 drift, takes about 15 minutes to do a drift, or 20 minutes. Thank you. Good you see that. 20 minutes to do a drift. And by that time, if you've just got a couple of little ones, we might give 1 more go, but probably not. We're out of there. Okay? Because how many guys who pulled up and just caught little ones and that's all, and you think maybe the big one, the eggs, the little ones are there? That's not always the case. I wish it was, but it's not true. Sometimes it is, particularly in the deep water it is, but not so much in the shallow water. The shallow water, the big ones are just cruising around, feeding on fish. You're better off looking for bait, pelicans, no seaweed, as in floating on the top. Seaweed on the bottom is good. And preferably not too much snotweed in the water column. If you see snotweed and weed in the water column, I don't think they like it. It's too dirty, it's in their face, they don't know about it. They're out of there, they're looking for more cleaner water. So unless you're fishing the Logan or something, it's very hard to catch fish in dirty water. A flathead this is. They like sort of semi-clean, green's not too bad, as in clear green.
It needs to have some clarity.
Clarity to it, yeah.
I don't like big particles and stuff like that. I reckon it gets stuck in their eyes, or I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I believe too. Yeah. So we now understand what we're going to be doing on the day. So we've got all our rods rigged up. We've got 4 rods. We've got 2 that, 1 is a vibe, maybe 1's a casting lure or a troll lure, and we're going to head off for the day, all right? We're going to now look at, okay, what am I going to take with me to use for lures? So those lures I'm going to use. So as we said earlier, the small lures are definitely go in the season. But now I'd still have a 2-inch lure. I'd definitely have a 3 and definitely 4. That'd be probably the 3 size at the moment. Stu might have a big one of these things that cast on the flats.
Yeah.
Time yet, Stu? Or not quite time?
Look, there's a few big fish starting to be on the flats, but they're copping a bit of a flogging. It's a pretty early days on it, but yeah, the biggest lure that I throw this time of year is about 5 inch. Yeah, in soft plastic wise.
Yep.
Yep.
Last year, I'll start at 5 inch. Last year, we had exceptional good luck on this lure up on cast into bank edges. And I'm probably Stu's probably going to belt me later for saying too much sometimes, but that is a killer.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of lures do that colour. It's like a nuclear chicken colour in some brands, but that particular one outfished any other brand we had in that style, and that's and we did real well on that. I would really like you guys to focus on. A lot of these might use like half ounce or 3/4 ounce. I'm sorry, half ounce or 3/8 ounce, and I used to do it too. And that's all I used to use actually. I used to smash the bottom of it in that much water, you know. But Barnesy is a good mate of ours. Many years ago, taught us how to fish light, and we always said he was fishing wrong, and we made him fish heavy because that's how we catch him at the time. And he started catching a few, but he's gone back to light, and we've learnt that light's actually a lot better than heavy. So when I'm talking light, I took like a 3/0 hook with a 1/6 jig head on it. Okay, you guys fish? How many people fish that light? And how many guys fish like 3/8 or half? Yeah, probably, but in all situations. So, but what I'm talking about is fishing that 1/4 ounce or 1/6, even in 3 or 4 metres of water with tidal flow. So you learn to cast up slightly across the current, but right up into the current, and hop it back with the current, keeping your nose into the current. So, how many guys have got electric outboards here? Maybe more than half of you. And for those of you who don't, you need to learn to. I don't know how good your boat is. I should tell you to wreck your boat, but you need to either use the motor as one of those like what do they call those things? Go down to the bottom.
Like,
Like a power pole. That's right, exactly. Which I do on my kitty. So you position yourself, say, at a creek entrance, and you put the motor down and try and hold yourself facing into the current with the motor. Otherwise, the boat swings around, the motor still holds it in the mud, and you cast from the stern back into the current. You need to learn to cast into the current, simple as that. That's the secret. Okay, if you cast with the current, it's very hard to get that lure to the bottom. It just doesn't work. Floaties don't want to know about it. It's very rare you'll get one. You will get one, but it's very rare if they come up to it. So casting into the current allows you to use a lot smaller jig head, and the lure's a lot more natural, free-falling, whatever, okay? So get away from half ounce and 3/8 in water under 2 metres deep, and go down to maybe 1/6.
On like a calm day, would you fish lighter than 1/6?
Yeah, Stewie's been using 1/10.
Yeah, it depends on your lure.
So I think it's too light, matey. But on that real light rod, and I use 4-pound braid on a lot of my stuff as well. Actually, probably if I've got 5 rods rigged up, 3 of them on 4-pound at the moment. But it's quite strong, 4-pound. Yeah. But yeah, so 1/8 or maybe give that a crack.
Yeah.
But 1/6 is generally not too bad. It seems to work good, and I find the lead profile suits most of those lures. You go to 1/6, 1/10, unless it's the Ned locks or something, or the new ones from S Tackle, they're quite small on the tip, so you get that sort of blunt face on it, and the lure doesn't quite perform as good. You know, maybe cut it down with a pair of scissors. So always have scissors with you and trim. Trim this if the lure's not swimming right or whatever it might be, or the tail's been bitten off, just cut the tail a bit more skinny and make it work again. If you're running out of that favourite colour, whatever, improvise because it works. But generally speaking, just once the tail's bitten off on most lures, it doesn't work on soft plastics.
The biggest thing with jig head weight is you've got to look at the profile of plastic. If you've got something with a really big paddle tail, it won't swim on the sink with too light a jig head. It'll still sink, but the paddle tail might stay pretty rigid. Whereas if you've got like a minnow style or a straight tail thing, you can get away with a lot lighter head. And it's a lot more hydrodynamic, sinks a lot quicker, and you don't need that weight to pull it down. So.
I'll just rig up a few little plastics while Stewie's talking, and I'll pass it around to show you what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's all right.
But the other thing is like paddle tails. You get obviously ones with really small paddle tails, you can get away with that lighter jig head again. And then you get ones with really massive ones where you need a bit more weight just to pull it down. But,
Supposed to.
Yeah. I'll rig some plastics while.
He's talking. So that get the right shaped head for the right plastic. But if you go Ned locks, so Ned locks are those ones that are. I'll pass these ones around. This is one of the S tackle ones. They're that sort of shape, and they'll suit a little profile lure as well as a bigger profile lure. Where if you go to some of the other brands that I'll pass this through, this is actually a really good jig head too, a jig hook as well. Can't get them anymore, but that one is quite small on the tip. So if you put that onto some of the soft plastics, it'll be quite flat at the front and won't perform as good. The swim action is not as good when you do the lifting and stuff like that. Okay. Sorry, mate. Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. Thanks, Drew. Okay. So I'll start at probably prawns as we go in the sizes as well. We'll go through the different types. So how many guys here use prawns as soft plastics? For those of you who don't, you should definitely be doing it. I use little paddle tails. I don't like using split tails too much, like that sort of shaped tail. And I definitely don't like curl tails too much. But I love paddle tails and I love prawns. And out of those two, I'd use prawns probably maybe 60% more than I do 40% compared to paddle tail. So why do I use prawns? Because prawns glide. So when you lift up and you use a paddle tail, when it falls, it just swims straight back down. It has no momentum in any direction. It just goes, unless there's a bit of current, but it just falls down. When you use a shrimp, they glide. So when you lift it up and you drop it back down, they'll shoot away a bit, particularly with the football jig head. They'll glide. Some glide more than others. The Berkeley ones, like the gulps, shrimps, are a fantastic one for gliding. So if you have access to a pool or clear water or whatever you can one day, just cast it and watch what happens. Just shake it, lift up it next to the boat if you've got clear water, and then drop it and just see what it does. And it doesn't go, if you've got a normal jig paddle tail, drop the two down, one will go straight like that, the other one will go like that. And gliding is what really pisses the flathead off, because they normally expect the fish just to fall down because they're injured and they're going to whack it, but it shoots away and they hit a lot harder and they're a lot more aggressive, and they don't slow down, don't fart ass around, that's what I'm not looking for. So they go hard, and I know you reckon it's true, but you like using prawns.
Yeah, look,
too.
I think it definitely depends on the profile of it. Like gulps are traditionally a bit harder. They're very flat on the bottom. We'll pass.
I think the
around.
that wide tail helps too.
It's it's something for them to play on. It's kind of something for them to work off. Whereas if you were to have something like a prawn like this, which worked really good, but it's a totally different action.
Yeah, different action.
That doesn't have any gliding ability. It's got more moving parts on it. It moves in a different way, but it doesn't glide. So
the first prawn coming around, so we'll do prawns now. The first prawn coming around, we're going to lift it up and we're going to drop it, and it's going to glide. It'll be that deep or 3 meters deep. The second prawn, I got some good fish there yesterday actually, but when we're casting over the flats, this is a new one. So it's like the biggest shrimp that Wilson do, which is the, what's one he's or like that style, Samaki one. So that's Samaki style, if that sort of Kevlar join in it, like multi-joint at the back. But with the little one, you cast it over the top of the weed beds, you hit the bottom, you might get caught in the weed the first go, but hopefully you can shake it off. And then just sort of hop it like it's just nearly falling on the weed each time you do it. As it's going down, you sort of hop it back up again. So you're like hopping it on the bottom. And it works really, really well. And that's true, so the tail's doing that sort of action. So it's a different technique to using a fixed prawn like the gulps, or the fantail's a really good one too, fantail shrimp, which is another Berkeley one. So a different action to using that style of prawn. Actually, they've got an articulated one too, haven't they?
yeah.
Yeah. So the Z-Man shrimp as well, it's articulated, so it's the same style. It's more of a lift up and drop down, lift up, drop down type. How do you work those, Stu?
Yeah, they glide a little bit, to be honest, but not heaps.
Stu likes to use that one. I like to use gulp.
Yeah. But yeah, prawns are definitely it's a very popular lure, and I definitely recommend using it. At the end of the day, it works anyway because every estuary system has prawns or some type of crustacean in it. So even if you rock up to a bank and you're fishing weed beds and stuff like that, and there's no little bait around, there's always going to be prawns and stuff in the weeds. So it's the bait that's always there. Yeah, mate.
Do you have preferred colours you use?
Yeah, it does depend on water clarity, but look, a bit of a surefire thing's always white. White's a bit of a tried and proven, always kind of works, but yeah.
Have the stuff coming around, that's all of our favourite colours. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so.
Look, other colours do work, and some days we'll just do left field, grab something that's like a black one or something and smash it, you know. I think they get used to colours as well, so you got to sometimes change. Yeah. Guys, in the prawns, there's 2 prawns that are quite good. The Hulk production prawn's not a bad one if you're into that sort of thing. They don't do a really big one at the moment. But the turbo shrimp is by far, as Stu will know, it's an absolute killer. The 3-inch one is the gun. We've got more of those coming. We actually got them not unpacked around the here, but it won't be till the weekend we get them out, which is too busy, but they will be out. But that's a 4-inch turbo shrimp, so they've got like that little leg system underneath that sort of goes like that.
What's the little white one you're saying? Is that a fuse?
That's a new one. It's got an articulated back. The fuse is fixed.
But then is that
No, it's actually the new S tackle. Yeah, they're really good. And it sort of like clicks up. You see how it clicked up, though? And it holds it?
Yeah,
It's quite different, yeah. Works very well, though. Yeah. But on that little one coming around, the white one that Dave just had, I'll be using about probably a 1016 in that, or quarter maybe, if it's a bit of current.
Yeah.
How do you stop the gulp from drying up? Because I used to use it like it dries up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just put them all in a Tupperware container,
One
pour
container,
together.
mate. Give them all one container. Put all the juice out of the bags in there. If that's not enough, buy the recharge and just fill it. And I'll live in there for 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't leave it in the sun, that's right.
They buy it great.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
I use it and then I go to a new spot by the time I got to that spot.
it's already dried out a bit. Yeah. So I try, if I'm not using it, but I'm casting another one, still on my rod ready to go, every sort of 30 minutes, I'll just quickly drop it in the water and pull it back out again. It's enough. Yeah.
Even if they go a little bit stiff, you start just using it, and within a couple of casts, they rehydrate pretty quick.
Yeah.
Before they go hard. Yeah.
But they do work. Stu reckons like cheeks, it's like using bait. But this bigger prawn here, this is what I'd start using about mid to end of September. This colour, this one, and there's a whole range of different colours that work well too, is an absolute killer. That one there. Actually, that colour there is real good too. That's the red one. And the 3-inch shrimp, we'll pass that around too, Stu, if you want. So the 3 packets coming in now, Gulp shrimps, 3 and 5-inch. They're like the go-to, definitely. Yeah. Xeric do a range of shrimps too, as do Samaki. And Stewie loves the Samaki ones, I love them too.
Yeah.
Xeric got some nice colour ones though. It's that Fat Betty colour. It's a pretty good colour, but I have to say this colour works better for me.
Yeah, that's probably my favourite colour in it. I think it's a white pearl one. The biggest thing is they come rigged with a weedless hook, and everyone's like, yeah, it's easy as, I'll tie it straight on and use it. But do you use weedless hooks for flatties or not? Personally, I hate them. I reckon they're the worst hook ever for that. Only because you need hook penetration and you need it to be proud. So the way that works is a flathead's got to bite on it in a particular way. It's got to expose the hook out of the body, and then obviously you've got to strike at the right time. With a jig head in it, it's got the hook's always proud, it's always ready. You feel the bite, you strike, and it's on. But so I just pull that hook straight out, put a jig head in it, and you're laughing.
I'll just pass. This is a little one of those little ones rigged up with a football jig head on it. I'll pass that around, Stu. So that little shrimp coming around, it's got like a little slot in it, and you just pull the slot over the eye of the hook and it locks in, and then tie a line to it. If that makes sense. You can see it when it comes around.
Is the football style a bit better jig head?
It sits flat. So most jig heads, when they hit the bottom, they roll over sideways, right? Then when you do your first jerk up, it sort of has to come back around and come up. But with the football jig head, you get a lot of strike, and you don't normally get a strike on the lift on that unless the fish is already sitting on it, on the normal jig head. It's when normally in the fall you get the hit, right? But with a shrimp or even a shad tail on a football jig head, particularly shrimps, when it sits on the bottom, it's sitting a hook up. And as soon as you do that first lift, it's very natural, and they'll pounce it straight away before you even get it up.
Yeah.
Right, and they'll hit on the fall, of course, as well, because it collides. So you get double the chance, I believe, using a shrimp with a football jig head. Yeah, that's my thoughts. I never used to it.
Yeah, I just reckon that a normal jig head, like rolling over on the bottom, the hook, instead of being upways, it's going to fall over. So it's very easy for a flatty to bite on it and it come out of its mouth. Whereas if it's stood upwards, when you strike, it goes straight in. Yeah, can't go that way. Go that way. Yeah.
Any other questions on the prawns at all, guys? Yes. So, I use them all year round. Yep. No, like the prawns are in the system all year round, but the bigger prawns are obviously sort of March, April, May, June maybe. But believe it or not, we go the other way around, so they get smaller sort of in September, October. Our prawns get bigger on our lines. So we're using small ones at the start and bigger ones at the end. Only because not only prawns, but they're feeding on the smaller bait fish at the start of the season. So we use 2-inch shrimp. Now they're 3-inch shrimp. All those little, well actually it is 3-inch, that little one going around, isn't it? Yeah, the S Factor one's 3-inch. And then come mid-September, end of September, Flatty Classic time, whatever, I'll be using that bigger 4-inch gulp or something like that. Yep. Yeah, so any other questions on the prawns at all? No? Okay, so now we're going to go to paddle tails. So as we were saying earlier, and still even now, little paddle tails are just like really, really good. And you're talking like a little skinny profile, 2-inch to 3-inch, something in this sort of category here, so the Ned locks on it. I just like Ned locks because they just seem to sit well on the bottom. They definitely fit the profile of these little fellows perfectly, and they just seem to work really well. I'll pass that around in that packet. That one is actually a really good lure, that one. Now, in the, I don't have any thin fins here, do I? I don't. But that little one that Stu rigged up before, that's a really good profile and works really well as well. That's the Bite Science. The McCarthy, Stu's looking at me going, what are you done that for? But this is a gun lure, that one there, okay? They don't last very long, they get ripped apart pretty easy. Maybe 6 fish would be the max you probably catch on one. But they just really, really work well. Thanks, mate. Now, power baits, they do a little one as well, but they've got a bit of a skinnier profile than the others. I like that more sort of round tube type profile rather than that sort of shape profile, if that makes sense. I'll pass this power bait around and you see what I'm talking about. So that's more that sort of oval shape. On a little lure, I just can't get off when I get used to it.
I like flat sides. Yeah. I reckon it's something more for water to grab. It's got more action.
I like it on a bigger lure, but not that little lure. That's just me. But what I do like is, so in gulps, in Z-Man, in the 3-inch, that's Stu's favourite one, that one there.
Any of those little 3-inch minnows, they work really good. Z-Man one.
Yeah, that's probably one of my favourite colours. But that profile is really good. But leading up to that, one thing that they haven't done yet is a smaller profile. This is a slightly bit more that sort of shape, not the round shape like the Z-Man minnow. But it's a smaller version, so it's only 2.5 inch. And we've been using these for a while, and they really do work well. And they do colours that I haven't seen before, which are really good. S-Tackle. S-Tackle. Yeah, it's only new. We only got them in today. Yeah. They're the same stretchy stuff and whatever, just slightly different profile and definitely smaller size. And work well. Then, guys, there's heaps of others that work well. That in another lure in the Z-Man, if you want to keep the profile small, the thin fins they're called?
Slim Swim.
Slim Swim, sorry.
Yeah.
They're good. They're very good. And then we sort of go up into 3 and 4 inch after that. So the minnows that are going around are really good. These are obviously still made of the same material, the bungee baits. These are really popular as well. You guys do have these in your bag, I think. But the same stretchy stuff as Z-Man, but they're a bit stiffer and a bit more firmer. So when you get a fish on them, they don't rip as easy. They rip anyhow. The Z-Man's so very hard to break, but they're just more hardy again. But really good action. So they're really good bait. That's those ones there. Okay, you'll see those in your bags. Colour-wise, we'll come to that in a moment. It's funny, in troll lures, your pink's really popular in troll lures for our customers and in working on the flathead. But when it comes to soft plastics, it's not a massive seller. It does work though, but don't get me wrong, it does work. But we tend, if you've got pink with white or pink with black or pink and green, it works well. But if you've got solid pink, like a micro mullet, it doesn't work as good for some reason. Don't know. Give it a go. Another lure works really well is Gulp in the Nemesis, in the 4-inch Nemesis, in the pumpkin seed. Ugliest looking lure you've ever seen, colour-wise. Has anyone used pumpkin seed on flatties yet? It's very good, as you know. And that one there's a big seller for us as well, and a good worker. Have you used these at Stu?
No, they got a rattle in them.
Sorry, mate.
Going out right now, you can pick two. Which ones?
That green and white one going around, and
The one that's good for 6 fish.
that's it, correct? Yeah, that one there, McCarthy. Yeah, that'll be my choice, and maybe probably the pink and white in the S tackle at the moment. That one's been an absolute go. It actually glows as well. It's been an absolute winner. Yeah, yeah. I haven't tried all the colours yet, so that one I've been using, it's really good. That's right now as we speak. Sorry, mate.
What about Stewie's favourite one?
Oh, look, I'd probably go that white prawn, that Samaki one.
Yeah.
100%, that'd be a one rod.
The one that you take the head out.
Yeah.
Place the head,
Yeah. And then, look, it's a hard, like, it's a very good question, but it's very hard. It depends on water. Yeah, as to what colour. But it'd be a little paddle tail of some description.
Yeah, 3-inch profile.
Like a lighter coloured paddle tail.
Yeah, lighter, generally. Yeah, the water's pretty clean at the moment, so it would be lighter colour.
So you find you usually do a bit better with lighter colours.
Depending on water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The darker colours in darker water.
Not
Oh,
necessarily. The other day,
yeah.
we got some good flathead on that red
Yeah.
and
yeah, it's
dark,
pretty dark.
dark
yeah.
prawn.
I just like a
What?
bit more of a naturally type
I'll
colour.
set
Like, I
it
don't
around.
like a real
That's-
hard, like I don't like
that's
motor
a-
oil. Can't catch fish on motor oil. Everyone loves it. Probably our biggest seller. But I just can't stand it. I don't know, it doesn't work.
Is that
Not for me.
I use those calico ones that like
Calico candy, yeah.
like
Yep.
6 o'clock at night, pitch black.
Yeah.
Got a decent one.
Yeah, it
on.
still
good,
works,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that one there's actually a black with pink. It's a very contrasting colour. It works really well. So that's different again to what you're used to. But natural colours, like natural whites are really good. Whites are probably the #1 seller in all lures that we sell. This, I don't know if you guys have seen this, a Cast Prodigy. It's a really good lure as well. They're a fairly new bait, but they are really good colours and really good workers. I'll pass these couple around. They're going to smash the flatties. You just know they're going to smash it.
So these have got a little glass rattle in them as well. So it's something else. So if the water is a bit discoloured or there is a lot of weed and a lot going on, it's something else that they can kind of hone in on. Yeah.
I'm surprised Stu didn't say that one there, because that is one of his go-tos. And it is a really good lure. They're a little bit dear. They're Japanese, obviously. Well, they're not too bad actually, but they're very good. Sorry. So that's a biwa, I think they're called. So they're a bait from, what's the brand on this? Sorry,
He was the brand.
It's actually it's
No,
another
Biwa is
I
the
think.
brand.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a Cat's something. Starts with K.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really good. They come in different colours as well. So again, we're matching all these up to around that sort of 1/6, 1/4 jig head. We're getting into like a 2.0 or 3.0 size hook down, these bigger baits coming around. Another great lure, guys, if you do want to try that split tail, how many guys have used that sort of profile, like a minnows profile with a split tail on the end?
Yeah.
And how do you guys find it? Not too bad? They're really good for fast action.
Catches Flathead.
Catch Flathead is what we were talking about. But we have got some guys that like using them in white or the Fire Tiger colour, and in the gulp or the power bait.
I had a bit of luck with the
White one?
On top last time.
Oh, right, yep.
That's my action. I fish a bit faster.
Yep.
It's a slow down, but
Correct.
I just fished it a bit faster.
Yep. So, yes. So as the gentleman's saying, guys, he's just saying he uses that split tail, but he does a fast action. That's what I'm saying. You have to work them fast, a lot more aggressive fast, like the old school style where we were quite aggressive on our lift, and let it fall quite quick, and they're sort of like darting around all over the joint, you know. Where a paddle tail, bigger head, yep, get plenty of action, and where a paddle tail is a slow lift up and let it fall back down again, sort of thing. It's a lot more slower action. What's that new one, Stewie, from Crush City in that green and white? I might not grab one. No.
No, you didn't go.
Okay, there's another little coming around. It's a Crush City one in a green and white. They do a white one too, sort of milky white colour, like Stewie's talking about before. And they're really good too. They're a split tail, and they've been working really well as well. The action on is very soft and very, very, very nice. Stu, anything on that so far, mate?
No, not really. I think the biggest thing is you need to alter your action to what lure you've got. Like a shrimp, just going back a step. But a shrimp action, like you see a lot of guys and they're jigging the rod real hard and real fast. I don't know how many guys have looked at prawns swimming in the water. They don't do that. If they're going hard and fast, they're going backwards. You rig these lures going forwards. So work it a lot slower. Even just a slow wind when it's hitting the bottom occasionally. If you look at a prawn swimming along the bottom, the only thing that moves is those little legs underneath. The actual body is very straight, very rigid. So there's no need to flick it really, really fast. Yes, I will flick it. It's more of a fact to clear weed. And then you kind of do that little slow wind and you move it around and that type of thing. Then you go into paddle tails. They've got a lot of inbuilt action. You don't have to work them that fast. The paddle tail is going to do a lot of that action for you. And then that straight tail, like little fork minnow thing that we're passing around there, you look at that, it's like a block of plastic. It's got no action whatsoever, so that's when you're going to have to move it a lot quicker. So you've got to put the action into that lure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when you get the rounder profile, like this one here, I'll just pass this around. These are really even more slow action because the fish will do all the action for you. So they're a lot more chunkier that way, if that makes sense. But really heavy tail. So a lot of action in that without doing anything. Even just slow winding, it's going to be really rolling and moving hard. So really good to rig up some stuff like that weedless and cast it over the weed beds as the tide's going over the weed bed. So that exposed weed bed, the tide's just starting to come in and the water's going to flood over it. Those flatties will be sitting on the bank. As soon as that bait goes over it, they go over it as well. And if you cast any jig head in there, any type, it'll get caught in the weed and just be painful. But if you rig something like that up weedless and cast it across the flat, across the weed bed, and just slow wind it, let it fall just a little bit, just enough so it's not quite in the bottom, twitch, and then the slow wind and keep the rod tip up on a bit of an angle. And they work really, really well. And you can visually see the thing swimming along and you see the flatty come behind it. Okay. We didn't talk about big curl tails, only because I don't use them much, but do you use them much?
We use them a little bit.
Yeah.
Curl tails are very, very good if you haven't used a plastic much or you're just starting off or like you've got kids and the kids want to throw a lure and stuff like that. You don't have to do much. As long as you move it a tiny bit, that curl tail's doing action.
Yeah, it has a lot of action. Yeah, so it's probably the only long type of lure that you don't have to do much action with because the tail's so soft, it does it all for you. So as soon as it goes down, it just stretches right up, becomes a bigger bait, and lots of action on the way down. Yeah, they're quite good though. I'll pass that around as well. Sorry about the lures coming around, folks, but try and take it all in. Okay, this is one of my go-tos and a bit of a deadly one. Has anyone used these fuse doctors at all? That sort of thing? They're pretty good if you guys know how good they are. You can't get them anymore, unfortunately. Dyer has sort of done one similar, but not as good as this. They're like my go-to. So when we fish the Flathead Classic, if I've got 4 rods, 2 are rigged up with doctors on, okay? Because at that time of the year, they're working now already actually, but they just work really, really well. Yeah, that size, that one, yeah. We use the bigger ones for dewies and stuff like that, but not flatties so much. I'll just leave one out. You can have a look at it. They come in different colours. The brown ones are really good. It's called Home Brew, and another
Purple
one.
Rain.
Purple Rain, yeah, they're really good too. Yeah. They got a scent as well. And then boom baits. So can't get these because they're bringing out a new model. These are a Samaki version of that sort of thing. Slightly bigger, good colours though. And these are made of that 10X type material, stretchy type, but in that sort of long paddle tail again, very stretchy. That other one's not that material. But these work really well as well. And they do a little smaller version, but obviously we can't get stock at the moment because they've got a whole new range coming out, I think later this year maybe. So that'll be next year's Flathead goes. But that profile is really good for not only lifting up, but also just for slow winding and rolling across the weed beds and stuff. That's right. I don't think they are stretchy, are they? Not. No. And then you go into a little bit bigger profiles like bait junkies and stuff like that. So that's your next size up, which is more designed for like in flathead fishing for vertical jigging or casting on the edge of, say, Kalinga Bank where it drops down 4 to 8 or 10 metres and then just hopping it up and dropping it back down again. So some of the guys that fish to deep that are really good, they don't cast much. They just drop their line down and they just teabag it, lift it up and drop it back down. They don't let it hit the bottom. They'll generally just drop it to a level so it doesn't get snagged. Then lift it back up again and drop it back down again.
Is that why you're drifting?
While you're drifting, correct.
And do you use a bigger jig head?
Yeah, so using,
with that?
that's right. So using, that might be already going around.
Use up to about an ounce, but you'll
Yeah.
start at about half ounce for that
okay.
stuff. Yeah. The biggest thing is if you're going to drift and do this type of thing, you either need to like pitch, like have a little cast up in front of your drift, or you need to have the electric and keep up momentum as you're drifting the same speed as your lure. Because if you're dragging it out the back, you're going to get that many snags. It's not funny. Yeah. When you drag a lure anywhere, you catch weed, you catch trees, whatever that is down there. Whereas if you're fishing more vertical, more direct, you get a lot less snags.
I'll just rig one up and pass the end for you.
Yeah.
Any questions for Stewie, guys?
You know,
You got any tips on getting your jig head straight in those bait junky things? I mean, I know
Yeah, it's hard.
I'm about to put one on now. Without my glasses on, if I can find my glasses. There they are.
yeah, no, it is hard.
You got to
Like
sort just go down the centre, Dave. That's what I do, and it always sort of picks up ski whiff and sucks it in. Does that make sense? But you just got to sort of work out where it sits on the plastic. So push the head up hard against it. You can see down the back there. I know it's going to come out roughly about here somewhere. So,
You're just going slow.
and I hold my, yeah, let's go slow, straight down the centre. Push it down. I do mine sort of sideways. Stewie does his front ways, I think.
Yeah, I go all right with most of the rest of them, but just those bait junkies way over.
Well, it's just that 10X
Yeah.
material.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're on attempt number 3 already, so we're going pretty good.
There's overfits.
Do you find more natural colours work or more brighter colours?
I like something with a bit of colour to it. Yeah, like I wouldn't put on a glass clear plastic or anything like that with a bright eye or
So
whatever.
it pinches
yeah.
inside, Dave, like
Yeah.
so.
I found like I
So,
think
secret?
a bit better too.
Yeah.
You just snip that little internal.
In and stuff like that around cabbage.
You always got a bit of dirty discoloured water bait, you know, so it's something for them to focus on.
They just look like such a great plastic. and
Oh, they are. They are good.
struggle like
The colour of choice around that area.
Yeah. Yeah.
We found we've had a bit more success with that.
I'll pass this around to the blind people. Is anyone here blind? Okay, firstly, my turn. Stewie, it's got to be, we're perfectionists, so it's got to be perfect.
I'll just
Yeah, you
pass it
can't better
around.
it, so he's just giving up, okay?
No, I'll just rig one.
Oh, here we go. I'm giving you only 2 minutes like I had, Stu. Okay, here we go. You want to see us out fishing? It's like, oh my gosh. Bad husband and wife, maybe I don't know how you work. How you'd say it. We've always got one on each other until one beats the other person. Then it becomes subservient and then it changes again.
Those are actually pretty hard to rig, I'll give you that.
Oh, Stewie, mate. You still got 50 seconds, mate. If I correct it, do you want to see it press this? Dave, you're right. No,
I've never been the biggest fan.
At the end of the day, it's really important that your plastic's straight. It's not bent, it's not curved, and it's not off-centre. It's got to be straight. The straight you can keep it, the better it is. And if it pulls back down, and just when you get a fish on, sometimes you'll get a fish on, you're actually on, then it drops off. You pull it in. If it's just moved back 1 or 2 mil, you must push it back up hard against the head.
It's a shame, but because I just end up going like those Crush City ones you just got in, they're much easier to...
Yeah, they're softer material. It's different material.
But it's like, you know, I mean, I'm going away from what I think is a great plastic because I mean, I have, you know, free plastic to get one that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, no, there's no such thing. Someone's got to sort of invent something you can push down and pull the hook through, but it doesn't quite work the way because the hook's got a bend in it, so it's very difficult to do that. But anyhow, practice. Lots of practice.
Yeah, it's great.
But yeah.
Like a juice that you put on a gulp juice.
Yeah, so we're going to get to that in a moment. Yeah, so as I was saying before, the only time, if I'm using a plastic and say I'm down to my last 2, and I've caught maybe 8 fish on one plastic and it's ripped and it's ripped on the side, and I'll twist it around and use it upside down and still catch fish on it until I know it's like totally spent because I've only got 1 more left. If it's like not quite performing well in the swimming action because it's got too much wreckness to it, then what I do is I definitely put more S factor on, like cake up the hole, so to speak. Yeah, mate. And they just can't resist but bite it. Out of we got a lot of different things down there: Sachs, Centon, and Gulp, and S factor, and whatever else. That's Stewie's, but I actually put mine back.
Crap, yeah.
But S factors, 98 out of 100 sales we do in additive. Has anyone here not tried S factor in this crowd? Okay, if you haven't, you're missing out, guys. I got in the boat, remember S factor. I never used to believe in this stuff years ago, but I feel vulnerable. I'll probably drive back from Jumping Pin back to Rono Bay to pick it up. Nearly. Yeah, so just a little bit, mate. So I'll actually, it'll be gone by the time it gets to the third person, but yeah. I'll just grab one of these plastics here. Stu, did you put that one on the hook before, mate?
No, I didn't.
Do you mind to have another go at it, buddy? Have another crack, mate. Stu's gonna have another crack here, guys. I need to show you. So what you do, mate, is when you put it on, put it around the hook area the most. Don't put it on the tail because they're going to grab the tail and go hard on that, and your hook's right up there, so it's not going to work. I will sometimes put it around the head, from the head to the hook area. Yep. So I'll put a bit on. When you first get a bottle of tube of this stuff, it has like a little, this one's actually not too bad. It'll have like a lot of oil comes out the first bit, and that's just the normal, but then it's more consistently gluggy than that. So you just, I know you can't see down the back, but I've risen up maybe about 3 or 4 mil, and then I just take that off with my finger like that. There's a little piece on the end there. And then I'll put it on this plastic when Stewie's done it. Stewie, that's not too bad, mate.
Job's worth doing yourself.
Okay, third attempt. Okay, so that's the plastic there. So I'm going to put it on this side here and this side here. And there's a little slot under a lot of plastics these days. I put it in the slot. So hopefully it comes out a bit later there. So just around the side. And when you get a white one, you think I'm putting brown on it. And don't worry about that. I'll eat it more. Then around the slot here. So, and that's it. That's around about where I'd put it. Stu, I don't know how you put yours on, but
I don't rub it all over myself or anything. I just get the tube and just go like that, and that's it. It's done.
we have a thing downstairs.
Dougie puts
Yeah.
more on his bloody clothes.
And then I walk past
Yeah,
Stu and go like this. Just in case he falls in the water, we've got plenty of fish around us. There's a thing called Stinky Finger we sell downstairs. It's like a plastic container with like this foam stuff inside, and you can put like different scents on it, if that makes sense. So it's double-ended or whatever it might be, and you can just lay the plastic and then you close it up, and it puts it on for you. So you fill it with the scent, either end, different types, whatever, or just all less factor. Squeeze on 3 tubes, whatever, and that's it for the whole season. Yep. Okay. Any questions to that at all, folks?
Just talking about bringing them up.
Yes, Paul.
You guys go straight down the centre and come out.
Yes.
I was thinking the other day because you just mentioned then they've got the slots on either side.
Yes.
Where they come out of the top of that slot
And pop it back in.
and put it in.
Yep.
So that sits in the slot.
Yeah.
And then comes out that way. You don't break that. You just want to go down the
No, it's still okay and probably easy because it doesn't get caught on skimming it through on the side.
Actually, when you
Yeah.
go back that way, it sits in. It's easy to gauge and make it
Yeah.
sit in the middle.
The harder part about that is when you bend it up to pop it back in, knowing exactly how that bend looks straight out is a bit tricky. So sometimes it's too short or too long. I don't know if you found that. I found that.
I just don't like it because when you've got exposed hook in the slot,
That slot, yeah.
fish bites it. If it doesn't bite a particular way, it's going to crush the hook down. It's going to sink, and then you've got no hook exposure. Like I want it rigid. I want it there.
Yeah, it won't fall back through the bottom, Paul,
Yeah.
on that one. Good call though. Yes, mate.
Back to the scent, how often would you re-scent it? Or...
About every 4 casts, probably, Stu.
I just do it when I remember. Yeah. Chuck some on. If I haven't had a bite of it, chuck some on.
Yeah.
I'll throw, yeah.
This one has no smell at all. It works on pheromones, so the fish just have to eat it.
What was it called though?
S Factor. I'll pass it around. Yeah. It's about 10, 11 bucks, 11 bucks a tube, I think, with the discount. Okay, yeah, you know what it is. So S Factor. Okay, so we rigged up that bit bigger one, Stu's passed that around. So when you get to that longer one that went around, so they're rigged up a little bit differently again. So they're rigged up normally weedless at the front and then maybe a treble at the back. Does that make sense? So you can put a jig head on it, but not very often. How do you rig yours up,
What's
Stu?
that big one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends where I'm fishing it. Like if I'm going to try to fish something like that in the deep, obviously I need weight. I need to put a jig head in it. There's always going to be a stinger on the arse end of it, always. But like a 7-inch, yeah.
You tie that off your jig eye,
I tie it off the shank of the hook.
not the jig eye.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can tie it off the jig eye if you want, but yeah, off the shank of the hook's enough. Just a uni or a blood knot to it.
And what size line? Sorry.
On the trace piece, like 20 pound. Yeah, so from 20 pound fluorocarbon, from that to that. I've had the occasional one bite it and chafe it off, but not many. Yeah. And then if it was, say, more of a 7-inch plastic, like something like that, you could rig it weedless and fish it over the flats in that shallow water as a bigger profile. But I generally just put a light jig head in that if I was going to fish it. Yeah. And just not worry about the stinger. Something like that is very easy for a half decent fish to fold up in its mouth. Something like the big one is still quite big. They still eat it. It still fits in their mouth, but it's harder for them to fold up and get in there. So just depends on the application. Yeah.
And is a quarter of an ounce jig head big enough for that? Or?
Yeah, so you got to think as well, like those ones that are pretty buoyant. So you might have to go at 3/8 to get it to sink at like decent rate.
Just play in the pool,
But
mate. You want it slow sinking as well,
Yeah.
not too fast.
Okay.
Yep. So you generally throw this over weed beds or over the sand flats around weed beds. So wherever the fish are on the high tide, up high in the island, pushed up against the edge, is where you're going to be throwing it. So you don't want too much weight, but as soon as you have enough weight to get it to go down. Yeah. So if you're using that over a weed bed, might be say 1/2 metre deep, you sort of need to know the fall rate before you start working it. Yep. Oh, sorry. Downstairs, matey. Go down and go back to that back wall that's on the right side. Cool. That's all right.
Does that S Factor work in freshwater too?
Yeah, it works everywhere, mate. Everywhere. We use it on trolling lures, Paul. I use it on casting hard bodies, everything. Just don't use it on bait. Yeah. Okay, so any questions on the plastics at all, folks? We're going to go to vibes now. Is that all right? Everyone's happy with plastics? Yeah. All got it? Worked out? Okay. Vibes, Stu. Stewie is a vibe, man. He's just crazy on vibes. So
it works pretty good.
Yeah.
They definitely have their time and place. They're very hard to use in weedy areas. You've got to think like with a jig head or a standard size soft plastic, you've got one hook. You've got 1 point for weed to catch on, whereas this, you got like 6 points. So good hookup. They definitely work a treat, but it's a lot more of a weed catching thing at times. There is ways, like if you jig them a certain way, you can flick weed off them and things like that, but if you jig them too hard, they foul up on themselves. They're definitely a really good lure. Don't be scared of them, but it's a lure that after you work, say, a hole, and you've thrown at every little corner and you've caught fish and all that and they just go off, that's when I'd pull out a vibe and throw it and catch more fish. It's a different bite. The fish that won't bite a soft plastic will bite that.
I see him do it all the time when I'm using soft plastic and throw the vibe out and I go, hang on, what have you done? And that's because you got a fish on, of course.
Yeah.
The vibe.
Same technique as the soft
A little bit
Slower.
different.
Yeah, it's got to be slower because if you flick it too much, because you're pulling from the
Gets caught
centre, it flicks the arse and catches your line.
Like when you're winding it in real slow too.
Yeah.
It's
So I'll throw it
not
out.
so much winding in, it's more lifting. Like I'm 1-2 and drop it back down again. I don't know about you, Stu.
Yeah, the biggest thing is you need contact with it.
Yeah,
so when you throw it out, you need to fish it tight line until it hits the bottom. When it hits the bottom, there's no period where you've got slack. They're not going to dart off. They're not going to do anything. So you throw it out, you fish that tight line, it hits the bottom, you feel it clunk, hit the bottom. You might get a bite at that point, you know straight away. Then I just wind up the slack and I'll vibe it up, so just lift it. At the top, I might give it like a little shake. And as it's dropping, I'm dropping the rod and I'm winding the slack. So I've always got tension on it. So it's never just going to free fall. When they free fall, that's when they foul. And tangle up and...
Yeah, we tend to use more the small sizes. I find the small ones are by far better. I don't know about you, Stu, but...
Yeah, like bigger ones definitely have the application, more of a vertical fishing butt. So if you're going to fish the deep water, up the pen or around the seaway or channels, vibing around pontoons and stuff like that, it works really well. But you need that bigger profile for the bigger weight. They don't do a big profile with a lightweight. They don't do a little one with a heavyweight. Yeah, they're all kind of the same fixed weights that they do.
I just think it's the bait fish they're feeding on too, is that size.
Yeah. But so those bigger ones generally, that's more of a vertical style fishing for me. That stuff there, I'll cast and work it like a plastic, but just that slower action. Yeah.
What about like current?
Cast up current
Yeah,
and
just
hop
cast
it back.
up current, it'll be right.
Yeah, so
Like I kind of fish up to like that size, like 85 mil.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's the ugliest colour ever, but it actually works really good. Yeah.
They're similar to that prawn going around, same sort of style, you know. Yeah, pink and black.
So if you
It's a
see
great
soft
combo.
vibes, just for your guys' knowledge, that come with assist hooks on the back, they're actually a colour designed for yellow belly. So generally they're a very dark colour. Anything like that seems to work for flatties as well. Don't know why, but that last year was a really good lure. Haven't caught many on it this year yet, but it'll come around.
Next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So the flathead will really start progressing towards the built-up area, which we call the seaway and the jumping pin, over the next 2 to 3 weeks. They just turn up, and they're already starting to turn up. We noticed yesterday, but they just come from everywhere to those 2 spots. It's the hub, and it'll be like that for about 4 weeks to 5 weeks. A lot of big ones and quite a few smaller ones, but it's just they do their thing. What do they do? And they go back up again, back up the river. So they'll hang around down around there to about probably late October, early November maybe, and then they disappear again. So how many guys have not used vibes here? Okay, I'll give it a go, guys, if you can. You've actually got one in your bag now, the little one. You're not successfully, okay. Slow your technique down, keep your act, as Stu said, keep the weight on and the fall all the time. I know, so I did 2 lifts. About how many lifts do you do, Stu? You don't
I
do
only
too
do
much.
like one.
One or two, yeah, that's right, yeah. So you don't sort of just keep jerking it, it'll get tangled up. So just a little drr, drr,
As long as you're feeling
that drr, drr feel. Yep.
that's all good.
That's
all
it.
good.
That's
all
it.
you want.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't been real successful with them either. I've tried them, but I haven't caught much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And fairly light tip rods very important too, I believe, with those.
Yeah, the biggest thing is
Yeah.
like when they're
Right.
going around, have a look at them. The hook's very small. Generally with that stuff, you just hook them in the little meaty part of the mouth or something like that. If you run in too stiff a rod, you'll just pull them out straight away.
Yep.
So they do swallow them at times, but
it needs to be quite soft on the tip. Okay. Not too soft, but reasonably soft. Definitely not stiff like that one.
What sort of rod is that one you've got there? What is it?
That's a little squidgy 7.4.
yeah, just
Yeah.
2 to 5
Speedy
kilos. So
S3,
anything
2
2
to
to
5.
4 kilos
Yeah.
or something like that's fine.
Yeah, that's a good all-rounder actually. We've got those on special too. I'll talk about it later. But that's the sort of thing that you want to use, that we do use.
Yeah, mate.
Just a quick one with the two, because I've got a real light tip rod that I use and I catch a heat with the little vibes. And then sometimes I'm using a plastic with just a single hook and I'll go bang, yep, got him. And then wind for a bit.
And it
then
falls
let
off.
go.
Yeah.
Is that because I'm a bit soft on my tip?
You're not setting the hook.
You need to tighten your drag up it as well, mate.
It's not even the drag, it's not like
Yeah,
it's
okay.
that. I think my rod's maybe a little
Too
bit
soft,
too
yeah.
soft.
Yeah.
on the head, is that-
Yeah, if it's like a 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, it's too soft.
Yeah.
If it's 2 to 5, 3 to 6, that's our category that we like to use and that we sell most of. So yeah, but if it's got one in there anywhere in the equation, it's not good enough. It's not right.
Yeah.
It might be okay on the vibe, but definitely not on the soft
Yeah,
plastics.
I seem to get him on the vibe and then that, I'm like, thought I had him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
He's taking
yeah. Good troll rod.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah. Okay. So any questions on the vibes at all, folks? As Stewie said, if you're using them around weedy areas, they are painful, and unfortunately, it's the fish are in that area, but it hits the bottom, you go to lift up, it's got weed on it. They get caught in the weed. The hooks are so sharp, you just can't help but get weed on them. So you just got to quickly wind it in, take it off, throw it back out again. You can't do much about that. No.
What's
Yep.
the sort of minimum depth you can throw those vibes in? Are they
6 inches?
Yeah, I was going to say about
No.
2 foot, 1 or 2 foot, maybe.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, they'll work.
Slow roll, like just,
Oh, not really.
it's
No.
really just that.
Just
I
the
think-
lift and fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you deep water, a straight line,
So the deep water, the bigger ones, the straight line, like teabagging again, and just again keeping up with the fall as well. Yeah, on the fall. Don't let it just drop at the rod tip and it curl up. Yeah. Okay. So any questions on the soft plastic? That's probably it for the lures. Now I'm going to go to the next category. Is that all right? Everyone's good? Cool. Okay. So we'll go to the tools and we're going to do it. Okay. So first thing, and make sure you've got some sort of lip grip in the boat of whatever type it may be, whether it be like a lip grip like that sort of thing. Rotating ones are good because the fish spins, it doesn't flick over your hand. Cheaper version, that's about probably as cheap as you're going to go in styles, that style there. They sort of lock on the jaw and lock in. You've got to just push it back out with your finger that way to undo it, okay? They're quite good. That one's good, you can see it in the dark too, but not going to be flathead in the dark, but they do work. But the thing is with flathead, a lot of people don't know how to use the lip grip properly. Always hook it on the bottom jaw, not the top, okay? It'll flick off on the top, never flicks off on the bottom, okay? So they've got a really hard piece along here, and you get over the top of it and hook in over it at the bottom, in there. Next thing, a hook out gun. You got a hook out gun there. Probably most of you have never used one, but they are so good, okay? So all you do when the flathead's hooked up, you just find out where the barb meets the flesh, and it's always obviously underneath the plastic, and stick it down there and grab a hold of the hook and just pull the trigger, and it just pops out. And if you've got a, say, an undersized flatty, the ones that really rip your hands apart, the little tiny ones, you just hold it inside the boat or shoreline, whatever, hook it on and just pull it and shake it, they just fall off. If you're using little lures and you've got a decent flatty, whatever, and it's sort of hooked on the side down there and you're going to get spiked and you've got another set of trebles flicking around, just put the lip grip on the fish and just hook onto the treble and just pull on, just fall straight out. It's really, really easy. Okay, I rate those highly. Make sure you've got sort of half decent pair of braid scissors that can cut all the time on all your fishing.
What about when the flatty smash through there? Because it's hooked up down the throat. Any tricks for that?
Got to keep it. don't waste it. Yeah. you can't do anything. You know, the other day I did. Sorry.
Sell that to fisheries.
Yeah, I know. Oh, if it's undersized, you can't keep it, of course. But the other day I did let one go with a lure in its mouth because I knew it was going to kill it. It was about 50 something. I just cut it off and hope to get it out because I didn't want to keep it. But I know. But generally, in that case, I'll keep a few. You know, yeah.
Oh, it's just always seems to happen with undersized ones.
Oh, and the little ones. No, we don't normally have that problem with little ones. Yeah, right.
Happened to me with them.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It's just like,
It's using little hook, little jig heads maybe.
Yeah.
catch you later.
It's a very they're a very strange fish. Like we've caught them on trolling lures or like those big lures with heaps of hooks on them, and it's swallowed right down. You turn around, it's in the net to grab a pair of pliers or something. You turn around, and the lure's over there and the fish is over there. Don't know how, but it's happened more than once. Like it's not a coincidence. It's not a fluke, but yeah,
They shake it out somehow. I don't know
yeah.
how. Yeah. But leader size, I was saying before, I definitely have in a boat maybe this time of the year 12 and 15 or 16. And then if you start fishing the deep, 12, 16 and 20. If I'm sometimes fishing area where I know there's big fish, but I'm only using little lures, want a lot of action, I might put a little bite trace on. I'll go from 12 to 16, I have that much of 16 pound, just as a protector sort of thing. Especially up against, say, the edges of Klinger Bank and stuff like that, where there's big ones sitting there. So you've got your leader, you've got your scissors, hook out gun. That's probably about all the tools. Definitely a piece of rag. Oh, a glove. So, as I said before, you grab them and they'll just chafe your finger apart badly. So just put a glove on, grab them in the mouth. They don't hurt you, okay? The gloves you've got in your bags, they're stainless steel impregnated. So they're good field gloves too, by the way, but they definitely don't chafe that, okay? Some of those gloves that are silicone splattered, they'll rip those apart real easy, okay? And that's probably about it. Jig heads, make sure you've got a range of sizes to suit the plastics that you've got. There's nothing worse than going out there and the wing comes up and you haven't got a plastic that can hold you on the bottom. I mean, a jig head, sorry. So have a range of sizes. I'd probably say 1/6, 1/4, maybe 3/8 if you're fishing up to 6 metres deep at this time of the year. If you're fishing the deep, you want really sort of, you still want 1/6 or 1/4 for casting up against the edge of the bank and just working that little bit. You might just do 2 or 3 hops and then it drops off and then you just wind the line in and cast back out again. You don't work it all the way back to the boat in that circumstance because you're using a really light jig head. You want it to just fall naturally, not too quick. So it won't work once you get out in 3 metres deep and the current or the wind's blowing, whatever it might be. So some people I see they keep trying to work it back to the boat, but you're wasting your time. Unless you have really good weather, then you might do it. So remember that too. So some places you don't use it all the way in. Difference in jig heads, colour versus non-colour. Look, I like to use coloured jig heads and I know Stewie does too. I'm a bit of a fan, especially in pink colour, preferably a UV type head. And orange is really good as well. Green's probably my third pick, or white, maybe what it used to.
Yeah, orange is my most hated. I hate orange.
But you use it?
No, I don't.
Oh,
I
don't
try
you?
not to.
Okay.
But yeah, I use like
Well,
pink,
it's
green
actually
or
got-
white.
Pink, green and white?
Yeah.
Yeah. So orange is my first choice, pink second, green third, white fourth. So, and then natural fifth, unless I have to use it. Okay. Some things I do use natural, but not very often. If you can't find, if you've got the right size jig head and can't find that type of jig head in a coloured one, I'd probably raid the Mrs. Nail Polish or go to whatever shop and paint the jig head, preferably with glitter in it and preferably, or a pearl type finish and pink or whatever colour it might
Do
be.
you still stock for that on the start?
Can't get any more, no. No, so pro powder paints finish pretty well in Australia, yeah. Yeah, so it's like it's stuff that Dave's talking about. It's like a powder, and you just used to heat the lead head up with a cigarette lighter or whatever, and quickly dip it in the powder, and then it's a little ugly, but then it just goes nice and glossy, and just clean it up a bit.
Any normal powder coat will do, so.
Probably will, mate. I guess so. That's right. Yeah, that's right. You probably get it from a paint shop, I guess. Yeah, but nail polish is all right, and as are some other type of finish as well. Acrylic, I think it has to be acrylic. Yeah. Any questions on jig heads at all, folks? You all good on that? Okay, leader's good. Okay, got our rods sorted. We're going to go fishing now, Stu. So, tides. When do we go? So, as I said before, when you get to work it all out, you'll understand you can go anytime, because you know that's what's going to work at that stage of the tide. It's just a matter of doing a lot of practice and working out where to be at that stage of the tide. But preferably, certain tides are much better than others. So if you can wing that sort of low tide at 7 in the morning and you get the last to run out and the first 2 hours to run in, that's a really good tide. And then you might have about an hour or two of doldrums when the tide's sort of mid-water. And then as it gets towards the higher part, the fish are able then to get up onto the flats and they'll come back on the chew again. And then you'll get that high tide one where you'll then switch to using lighter jig heads and casting right up in the shallows on the edges of banks. And then the first hour, the run out, depends on where you are, it could be a bit quiet sometimes, but second hour in or third hour in, it starts to get low again. They drain off the flats and back into the deep and it all happens again. Does that make sense? So, but you need to know where to go on those stages of tide. Stu, you have your comment, mate? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, it's definitely going to be easier fishing on that last to run out, first to run in, because there's a lot of area where they can't be.
We have too many spots in that type of scenario. Which we go there, or there.
And
but
then,
that's the easiest one to do.
Yep. And then, as Dougie said, as that tide runs up, they're going to move up. As the tide gets to a high, they're going to feed. And then as the tide runs out, they're going to move off. They're not dumb, they're very smart, and they don't get stuck up on the sandbank. So they're always the first one. The first one up and the first one off. So the other thing when you look at a bank is if it's got hard structure on it, like say a rock bar, for example, or like mangrove edge with mangrove roots and stuff like that, there's certain spots where they will be and certain spots where they won't be. They won't sit on top of mangrove pegs traditionally. Every now and then you might see one free swimming over them, but they won't sit on it. You can't bury on it. It's the same as a rock. They might sit on the soft sand next to a rock, but they won't sit on the rock itself because they can't camouflage, you can't bury on it. So you need to understand what features the bank has and where they're going to sit in relation to that.
In that scenario, you need to maybe at low tide, or if you have a chance to have a look around, or even on the high tide, you can get up on the flats. You need to find those sand patches in between the weed or in between the mangrove roots, or wherever it might be up on the seaway, the sand patches on the rocks. And that's where they'll sit in that tide scenario, and you cast at those sand patches. If you like barrow fishing, you have to land right on that spot. If you land right on that spot, there's one there, as soon as you do that first twitch, they're straight away on. Or they'll follow it till it drops off to the next drop and they'll hit it on the fall. So, but as Stewie said, if you cast it around on rocks or whatever, you just won't get them. They won't be there. Yep. Okay, so the secret is to learn. How many guys here don't fish out of a boat? I should ask that question first. Everyone's got a boat. Okay, good. Kayak's fine, sorry. Or jet ski's fine as well. If you're a jet ski, heaps of guys flathead fish off jet skis as well. So the scenario is to go out at low tide and find where the drains are. So the drains are where a bank will sort of have on the edge of an island, say, and the bank's there, and there might be a bit of a dip in that bank somewhere up near the island, and that area will flood first because the water go in there, and that'll start to get water in it. So all those fish where that drain comes out, as in a natural drain we're talking here, and drops into the channel, the fish will be sitting somewhere in the edge of that drain, ready to go back up on that flat as soon as that tide starts to rise. That's why the first to run in tide is a really good tide. And you need to be casting that edge when that scenario is happening, as the tide's just starting to trickle in. And then as soon as you see the lowest part of that bank, it starts to flood, and you see the bait starting to shoot around on top of it, and it's only this deep, there's going to be a flatty going, there's going to be starting going in there. And at that point there, you might use a shrimp, or you might use whatever it might be, and cast over the top of that flat. And if there's any sand patches there, you land straight on that sand patch. So if you go to areas as big as this room here, and the sand patch is in over that corner, and it's only the size of this table here, I'm going to cast straight on that sand patch. And there's one in that flat, one of you that deep, he's sitting on that sand patch, guaranteed. And you don't see him maybe swim in there. Sometimes you will, but not generally. Yeah. They'll be there, guaranteed. And as soon as that water's coming through, they're just plucking off the fish, or your soft plastic. But I sort of doesn't see, I know you can't see it in the back. Can you see it in the back sort of, or not really? A little bit, okay. So what I got, the black thing's an island, okay? And this is all weed, all the green stuff's weed around the island. And that's a little drain there. And there's a little deeper area in here that might be at low tide 1/2 metre deep, and that bank might be sitting 1/2 metre above sea level at low tide. So when the tide starts to pour in here and just starts to come over this edge, before that period, you should be casting all the way along this edge here. And it's the same scenario here. The tide's going this way, it's coming in this way, okay? So that's the way the tide's coming in. And the tide's going to push up this little drain here. They're going to be sitting all the way along here, ready to go up in here to go on this weed flat here. And the tide will go along this edge here. That's quite high. The water, that's hard sand. It might sit 1 metre above sea level at low tide, right? So that's going to be the last part to flood. So they won't be sitting here at all. They'll be sitting down here because there's another little drain here. So they'll be sitting all the way along here. And you'll work from there, from where the weed sort of starts, up to maybe the end here, but predominantly around this area here is going to be the best area. They're going to be sitting out here. It might drop from, that's exposed, and it might drop down to, say, 1.5 metres or something like that. So you'll position yourself out, then it's maybe 2 metres or 3 metres out deep out here. So you position yourself out about 15 metres from the bank or 10 metres from the bank and cast in the fan effect. But if the current's going to be quite fast, you'll cast up on that angle there against the current and hop it back towards you. And you'll just keep drifting along and casting it and hopping it back along this edge here. If you get a couple of fish, you'll go back up and do the same scenario again. Once the tide starts to push in and the cut starts to go over here, these 3 patches here, if you can see them in the back, they're sand patches, and that's all weed. And they might be the size of, say, I don't know, a big trampoline or football field, whatever it might be. No, not football field, sorry. The size of a pool. And so I'll try and get in here if we can, because we've worked this area here, we've worked all out there first. And all these fish that were here that maybe you missed or whatever, they're going to get on here because this is going to be the first area to flood, and they'll be sitting in these patches on here. And same over here, they'll be going into here, and this is a bit deeper, this one, and there's weed clumps in there. They'll be sitting around the edge of this weed in about maybe, so that one might be 1/2 metre deep, this one might be 1 metre deep by now. And they'll be sitting around these edges here. You just work that whole area. Remember the tide's coming in here, so now the tide's flooded over this bank here. The tide's coming this way, so if you've got electric, you position your nose into the current, hope there's not too much wind, and you just fan cast the whole lot, like Stewie said, you'll work the whole area until you get no more fish. And then once that's sort of flooded, they could be anywhere now. They'll be spread out because you've got to wait. So in that position, you might say, okay, you might try cast hard bodies over the weed, but it's not going to be the best scenario. So then we'd maybe go to, say, Kalinga Bank on the high tide and work right up against the edge of the banks on the high tide. And then we'll work that for the first hour of run out. And by this time, this over here is dropped like back down sort of 2 hours after high. And all these guys that are over here are now going to drop back into this hole here and back into these patches off this flat. And it's the same scenario in reverse. You work it back out from that area. Does that make sense? Okay, and if you want to troll, you troll this edge here, you troll this edge here, and troll with the current and along the edge. If you were trolling also. Is this about what you do, Stu?
Yeah.
If the tide's sitting on this...
Man, I'm still trying to process what it was. I feel sorry for you guys. It's like, yeah, here and here and here and here.
Well,
for a start, like we've just said how you've got to cast with...
Yeah.
Bring it back with the tide. The tide's coming this way.
I know.
Dougie said park here and cast against it, so that's good.
You can't get on, it's too shallow.
We've contradicted that a bit.
No, but sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But look, I think the biggest thing is, how many of you guys have an electric motor? I urge you all to leave it at home and go without it for a couple of weeks. And it gives you the option to learn how to read water, learn how to read where you're going to drift, what the fish are going to do, if the wind's blowing one way, which way you're going to drift against the tide and all that stuff. I fished without an electric motor for like 10, 15 years, 4 flatties and stuff like that. And we were always half all right at it. And I still hardly use it now.
Like, same as me. And
The
Stu
biggest
knows
thing
it.
is, the biggest thing is, well, yours is always broken.
Yeah, true.
So there you go, all flat. But the biggest thing is, if you guys were to fish a competition and you had your electric motor and just say it shits itself on the first day or halfway through, is going to crack the shits. You're going to go home. You won't know how to fish because you don't know how to deal without it. Unfortunately, technology is getting so good that to make a good fisherman now, you've got to have all the latest and greatest. You don't. You don't need live scope. You don't need a sounder. Like, we don't look at the sounder when we go flatty fishing.
No.
You look with your eyes.
Hit the bottom.
You're fishing in shallow water. Yeah. When
It's
it's,
like your sea anchors at all?
No.
no.
No. You don't have time.
No.
You just drift.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but you know, people say if you leave the motor go, it scares the fish. That's bullcrap. If the current's running, if you don't use electric, the current's running hard against you and the wind's blowing the same way as the current. So you've got a northerly current going to the south and the wind's blowing 20 knots from the north. First, it's going to be hard fishing that day, but in that case scenario, all you do is just put it in reverse and leave it clicking over reverse, and you're still working your lures whilst props going around like that in shallow water, and you smash them. It's just a matter of understanding how the current and how it all works, you know.
Yeah.
And as I said before, like say, I don't know if you know where Shitter's Ditch is, but imagine it's a bit like that sort of thing there, like a little channel comes in, up jumping area. If the tide's coming in this way like it is there, I'll go in, this is if I don't use my electric, and I'll go in, I'll come in shallow, I'll actually purposely drift onto the bank with my motor tilted up a little bit, and when I hit the bottom, then I tilt it down into the mud, and it's facing actually forward, the front of the boat's facing forward because the boat can't sort of turn, it's like stuck on the bottom. And I'll get probably about 15 minutes before I have to reposition again. And I can just work that whole area there. That's how you do it too, I guess, same similar style scenario.
Yeah.
So if you don't have electric outboard, don't worry about it, it's not the worst. But if you have got one, it is advantageous in
Yeah,
certain
it is
ways.
good. It's definitely good to
Yeah.
use. It's easier to use, but
you
then
need to-
if you get too used to using it and then you don't have it, you can't. You don't know how to function. Yeah, we see it all the time. Like, you fish a competition, the guys are always up the pointy end. Something happens on the first day, man, they're nowhere. They don't even fish the end of the comp. They're like, oh well, we can't do it. You're not going to win. You're not going to do that. But, yeah.
That's probably getting the stream end sort of things, but you can still do it.
Yeah.
But anyhow, go back to the electric outboard over here. So
yeah, look, I'd probably fish. You got to think on a scenario like this. I don't know the depths and stuff like that, but there's going to be always a point that floods first, and that's the point that you want to fish first.
Here or here.
Because
Here.
so
Or here.
look, I'd probably try fishing something very skinny first. Fish are going to be more concentrated. There's a bigger area for them to flood off of all of this bank and fall in that gutter. So there's going to be more concentration here. And then as that tide gets higher, then you can work around spots like this with weed in it, even though it's still got water and it's shallow, but it's a lot deeper. There's weed there, so there's going to be bait there, and there's going to be, the concentration of fish isn't going to move too far. Might disperse a little bit, but it's not going to move. Whereas this stuff here, it's a very shallow or smaller area. There's not much holding them here, a little bit of weed on the edge here. So after that, they're going to move up on top of these flats. They're going to spread out. They're going to want to feed harder. Yeah.
So look for the drains, work them at the first to run in, and as the tide drops, they'll drop back into there, and the last to run out. So, yeah, does that all make sense? Yep. And on the high tide, they'll especially if you get that high tide early in the morning, so let's go reverse scenario, 7 o'clock high in the morning, say, and places like the Seaway on the rock wall there, on the north wall preferably, wherever there's sand patches, and they're up really high on those sand patches in like this much water, or that much water generally speaking, and you cast right onto that sand patch, probably from here to the back wall, out from the wall, cast. Depending on the way the wind's going and the current's going, because if you don't get one on that first hop, they could be on the next level down, because the wall sort of goes out the wall like that. It's quite shallow, and then I'll drop down. There's another layer of rocks, and then drops down again. They could be on that second ledge, and in that case, you need to know, okay, how big's my jig head? How much current have I got? And if you cast one cast and you got the shallow bit, no bite, drop the next bit, and then it gets taken away by the current, you'll then need to do your next cast more that way. So it might take you 2 casts to work out how you're going to hold the bottom. And it still might not work. And same wind against current. So wind against current, so I'm just trying to do a scenario. So if the current's going this way and the wind's blowing that way, the current's going to feel a lot quicker because you'll both stop moving, but the current all of a sudden is going really fast against you. Does that make sense? So in that case, you really have to cast more up into the current, nearly 180, straight up into it, and just work it back, maybe a little bit side on. If the wind's blowing with the current, you cast more flat out that way, instead of that way. And it'll just keep working with you as you're going along with it. Okay? And if the wind's probably going to be, or no wind, say, and you've got current, but you're not drifting too much, you're just going a little bit long to drift, but you probably just sort of cast on a bit of an angle up into the current and just hop it back. But you'll never cast it past the back of the boat unless you've got not much current, because it just won't get in contact with the bottom. And flathead has to be in contact with the bottom. It's so important. And every time you do that hop up, you must wait for it to hit the bottom before you do the next hop back up again. If you sort of just like do like this and then wind it and do like this, it doesn't work, guys. It will work when it hits the bottom and you got to lift it up. Sometimes they're on there, or you lift up and you drop back down and it'll get ripped out of your hand, sort of thing. And always be prepared for that too. It's really important. Yeah. And the ones that do the big dunk, they're the real good size ones. Okay. They're the ones that rip it out of your hand. Yeah. So any questions on understanding that at all? As we said before, if you've got cornflake weed or weed in the water column, you can see it just everywhere in the water. It might be a little bit dirty. I'd probably get out of there, look for cleaner water. You can come back there later. The water might clean up a bit. But at the same scenario, you've got to remember, this scenario, is that going to be too deep when the water clears up? It might be. So you just have to wait till next time you go out and the water's cleaner, because you waste that spot.
When do you throw those larger white plastics that you were throwing around, then just as the tide's coming over that bank, or do you wait a couple of hours?
Normally when it's fairly full.
Yeah, like those big fish, they're there for one reason. They're going to get up on that sand. They're going to feed as soon as they can get up there. But generally, I'll wait until it's about a foot. Yeah, yeah. Like even if it's a bank that might be, say, a metre and a bit at high tide, if it's got a foot of water over it, there'll be fish on there. Yeah.
So the 3 things to look for, Paul, is look for bait, cast where the bait is, even though there might just be sand, they'll be there somewhere. Cast to the edges on the high tide. I just about nearly cast my lure sometimes onto the sand and then bring it back out. They're buried in this much water, you know, they're this big, you know. And then the other scenario is there'll be weed clumps and I'll be somewhere buried around the weed or swimming around that weed, because the bait's using the weed as protection, and I'll be in that vicinity. So yeah, those 3 scenarios. Yeah. Any other questions at all, folks? Yes.
Is that always a summer scenario?
It's the same scenario. It could be summer, winter, anything. It's the way they feed and the way they act, I'd pretty well say, Stu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Doesn't matter
around
the time of the
here,
year so much.
our best flighty fishing during winter. Yeah, winter and into spring, but that's just here. So down south, it's better during summer. It's all on a water temp thing.
Yeah. So the water temp at the moment, like in the canals, it's warm up a bit now, but go back 2 weeks ago, it was like 16. On at Coombe Lakes 2 weeks ago, last week, it was 16.3. It was cold. It was too cold. So 17, 18 is probably a tide where temperature they'll start working. 21 is probably when the big ones sort of come out to play, and then I'll be at the bar by that time. So 21, 22 degrees, and then once it gets up around late October and it's 25 or something like that, they'll be heading back upstream. Doesn't make sense, because we have to go up further up the river, it's actually quite hotter. Like you go jack fishing up the river is like 28, that same day it's 24 at the Broadwater. Not quite sure how it works, but that's how it works. Yeah. Yep. Okay. That's probably it. We just, I don't know if you guys, anyone here seriously ever caught a metre flathead yet? No, we haven't either. Okay. Yeah, okay. Did you get one?
About 6 years old.
Oh, okay. So like we had a lot of guys. Yeah.
He was taller than normal.
Okay, at the time. Okay. So we get a lot of guys in here say they got a metre, but you got to put it on the mat to be a metre. But we have seen the odd one in the Broadwater on a mat. that we haven't actually physically seen because we can't keep them. But in New South Wales, it's funny, once you get sort of over the border, Iluka or even Ballina south, they seem to grow over a metre. I don't know whether they don't grow over a metre in Queensland, very rare. We're over there. Further south you go, down around sort of south of Sydney, St George's Basin, and that area down to Mallacoota, I think it is. Is it Mallacoota? Northern Victoria now. The 1.2 metres quite often I catch, you know. So we have little ones up here, but still a 90 centimetre flathead's a good flathead. Okay.
What's the biggest you boys have caught?
Stewie's a lot younger than me, so it's not fair.
Oh, here we go. Nah, my beast is 91 and a half. It's not, yeah, it's all right.
98.3. I think I've got 10 over 90 now, yeah. But I haven't got a media. I've lost 2 fish I know how big a 90 is, and these are a lot bigger. Yeah, I have to see it on Matt, I know. One straight the hooks out on my, I thought it was a stingray. I gave it too much at the start. I thought it was a stingray. I was on trolling on a little lure. So little, like, I don't know if you saw the one that Dicko got, or the guys with Dicko. They're only using a little, which we sell lots of downstairs, little Xeric Tango shad. They're only 40 mil or 45 mil, they're tiny. And they go to 93 or 94 or something like that. You see that one? That's a good fish, yeah. It was in the post last night. But the flathead I got that time, I was only trolling at a Jackson flow shad, it's called. They're 55 mil, only tiny as well. And that was, I've got a couple of 90s I think on trolling at the time on little lures. It was over a metre, but anyhow. And the other time I was on a plastic near Mackenzie's in Tiger Melt channel. Not Tiger Melt, next one over, sorry. One that runs to Jake as well from the pin on the north side. And, well, not Jake as well, to Gary's Tree Point. Yeah, I lost it next to the boat. That was a monster too. But, yeah, as I said to you, keep the drag loose, keep it tight. I lost a good fish the other day, but it was bad. Stu won't go there, I won't go there.
Angler error.
Angler error.
Quite openly.
I was too busy talking on the thing, telling these guys how to do it, and then it just went loose. Spat the hook out, but anyhow. But this year, the biggest one I got this year is 86, wasn't it? 84, 86, something like that, yeah. So far. But the bigger ones don't normally rock up till mid-September to end of October. Okay. Anyone got an 80 this year yet at all? No, come on, guys. What's going on, ladies? What's going on? Kids? You guys need to get out there and do it. But try and put that scenario into effect. So, Matt, you got a map in your thing there. I'll just quickly run through some spots with you if you don't mind. Can I just have a show of hands once you get your map out? How many guys fish the broadwater? And how many guys favour the pin, jumping pin? Okay. So, look guys, the fishing's good in both areas. Stewie likes the broadwater a fair bit.
I reckon at the moment you'll probably catch more down the broadwater end. Yeah, definitely.
So Crab Island, all the way through, if you know what Crab Island is, it's that's Sovereign Island there, and that's Crab Island down here. There's Big Crab and Little Crab. Big Crab's opposite Rainbow Marina. Little Crab's the one opposite Kurrajee, we call it Little Crab. So there's 2 islands there. You will get a few fish down the middle, but most of the fishing is going to be best on the northern side of Little Crab. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of drains, there's a lot of that scenario I'm talking about here in that area. And just try and find where those drains flow, try and work out. Some places the water might, it's coming in and it's flooding, but it won't actually flood over the bank until a certain stage of the tide, and it might fall back into the deep again. And they'll be stacked up there to feed on everything that comes through that drain once it starts flowing. So they'll sit in the deep. It's complete reverse what we're talking about here. So you need to find those spots on here on the run out and run in tide. So that's all those banks there, north side of Crab, sort of halfway down Sovereign, all the way down to opposite Efron sort of thing. Has anyone not fished there at all? Okay, if you haven't, you should be giving it a shot. It's good.
So on that green marker of the northern part there.
Yes.
So what tide do you fish that?
So on the
no bank or little bank there, isn't it? So,
the green marker here, do you mean over here?
no, up top, at the top of
Oh, the top of that big area there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's called Browns Bay. So if you all know.
One down from Browns.
Okay, one down from Browns.
One down in front of Sovereign, where you've got the green marker and the red markers on the other side.
There's a green markers on the corner of Rat Island there, Paul. Rat Island's a little island on the northern side of Sovereign there.
No, way back down, way back down.
Way back down.
To about the middle of Sovereign, where you've got that.
Right here. Oh, okay, that green there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that one there is going to be running tide, 100%, and it runs over the bank and flows along that edge. Yep, along that edge. There's a few sand clumps there and a few good little areas there to work. And if you can find those sandy areas in that patch, Paul, that's where they'll be sitting, running tide. Definitely not run out, because they're just going to fall along the deep channel until they find a drain to run in, you know.
I like it on the run out.
We're complete opposite. That's how marriage works, you know, one's opposite to the other, right?
I think you're jumping the gun a bit there, Dougie, mate.
Yeah, so, guys, other good areas to fish, Kurrajee. So down the bottom here where the Kurrajee campground is, from where the jetty is at Kurrajee, if you know where that is, where the houses are at Kurrajee, there's a few buoys in the water, which are a pain in the backside, by the way. But casting the bank from there all the way down to the mud flats just south of South Kurrajee campground. There's a little bit of mud there, and holds the fish holding the high tide up that mud. It's not too bad, but that whole edge along there is not too bad casting. The entrance to Browns Bay at the southern end over here, opposite sort of Sovereign, that's really good at the front on the run out tide or on the high tide. Okay. That big red thing over here where the entrance is to Browns Bay there, the one inside is more patrol area, but the one outside, you can cast that whole edge there. And then up towards this here where the Browns Bay comes out on the run in tide, it comes in here and in through here, and it pushes out over this edge here. And along that edge, you'll see the ripples. And look for ripples is another important part in deep water fishing, where it goes from, you know, where it'll be 1/2 metre down to 4. There'll be ripples there, and you fish the ripples. Okay. Cast up into the ripples and hop it back. Don't cast down to the ripples and bring it back against the current. Won't work. Effort on. Stewie drives past Flathead every time he goes out, but that corner of Effort on this side over here, and it's hard to see down the back. Sorry guys, but this side over here, which is the southwestern corner of Effort Island. There's a lot of potchy little sand bits and weed patches there. There's been a lot of big flatties caught there, guys, like 90s, 80s, and lots of consistent 50s and 40s. And the other side's not too bad as well, but this side's better, up to nearly the bridge, up to where the bank sort of falls off just before the bridge, heading north. Stu doesn't mind the bank on the north side there, Stu?
Yeah, on the north side, it's not too bad.
Yeah, which is just on between Effort and Sovereign. There's a bit of a bank there hard up against Effort, it's not too bad. And the Aldershots, we can get Aldershots, that's the area between Cooreen Cove and Sovereign Island.
Yeah.
All those banks there on the right, so you drive around the outside, or you go up the shortcut the inside. And there's a lot of little deep channels in there or whatever. It's the same scenario. Once that water drains off and they all fall in those little channels, you just either cast the edges, look for where the water's flowing off them and cast in that edge, and they'll be coming out the drains. Okay. Other area, obviously, Seaway. North wall fish is better than the south. You still can fish on the south, but north's better. And the flats at the back of, well, not so much the back of Wave Break, but north side of Wave Break, and also in front of Aqua, those big flats there are good for casting those big lures that you're talking about, Paul, or hard bodies, of course. I've caught a few on plastics around front of Lotus Creek, and that's out the front there, but not that much north side of Wave Break. How about you, Stu?
No, I've caught some big ones down there, but yeah.
Few and far between though.
Few and far between.
Yeah.
Solitary fish. It's not the type of spot where you go down there and catch 20 in the morning.
Yeah.
You might catch a couple.
Around like Seagull and like those sandbars around down there.
Yeah, I've caught some good ones over it, but not
many.
heaps, you know.
It's hard sand there and a little bit different.
Yeah.
They don't like hard sand too much.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I find. So any questions on the Broadwater at all? Anyone know anything about the Broadwater? No? Okay. We're going to go up to jumping pin. So As you see, it starts down here in the entrance in the Tipplers area there. That whole bank opposite Tipplers and the boat club there, all the way around to more or less where the pub is at Tipplers there. That whole bank's not too bad on the run in tide. So the tide pushes in from the seaway right up to pretty well, on this side, Tipplers side, it's about probably to Dux's or Tipplers Channel sort of area, Tipplers resort area. But on the western side over here, which is where you come to the Broadwater, either go to Jacobs Well or go to the Pin, it pushes right up to that join on the run-in tide from the seaway. So the Pin bar is just here, but it only pushes to there as far as it goes, because the tide from the seaway is much stronger. So you'd think it would meet probably down around Coorong Cove, but it doesn't work that way. So you have to think of reverse, which way is the tide coming in here? It's not coming in. You think down here it'd be coming in from this way, but it's not. It's actually coming in from this way. It meets around here somewhere. But that's a really good area. On the western side, that's the measured mile over here, that area there. And that's sort of just before you turn onto Jacobs. That whole side and around that corner is good fishing as well. Low tide versus run-in's good tide there. That flat over this other side here, so the channel goes really narrow there. You know what I'm talking about? That island where it goes to Jacobs Well, it goes to the Pin, there's that little island on the right. And the channel, everyone hits that sandbar there, they go straight and hit the sandbar on big boats. But the water comes in and it flows over this and drops into that little deep area. Again, they settle on that edge on the running tide. Okay. Up further, I like to fish this bank here. Stewie hates it, but I like fishing the abyss. This means casting out in the middle of nowhere in the deep. A lot of flatheads seem to stack there in the current, don't know why. All on that edge of that bank, they settle on there. Again, first the running tide. Once the tide gets, there's a little drain here. They'll sit around there up to that entrance. Once it gets higher, they'll go in the drain and you'll troll from over. You won't cast too much weed. Then getting up towards Tiger Mullet Channel, Wally's Gutter. So that's Wally's Gutter up where that number 3 is there. Wally's Gutter is a really good spot. Does everyone know where that is? So,
Is that like in the bedroom?
North side of it. So where
Yeah,
Tipler's
like
Channel opposite where Tipler's Channel comes out pretty well. Does that make sense? So if you go up past Tipler's and you're heading up towards the jumping pin, you come to a point where you either go left to go to Jacobs Well or right to go to the jumping pin. And that channel across from you, it's sort of like a snaky bend, goes behind that island. I can't remember the island's called there. Anyhow, that's a good area there. All through that area is good. And all those banks there, all around there, that's called Pandanus Island. That's the bedroom just here. All those banks there are really good fishing. In about another 2 weeks' time. They're not quite there yet. There's a couple there, but not there yet. They're all seriously around this area at the moment, which is there was the Western Blocks. We call that sort of Jacobs Well, Cavey Street Point, backside of Russell, that sort of area. But now they're moving towards the entrance, obviously. They're in that sort of mid-Tiger Mullet Channel, around Jacobs Well, turn to the Broadwater Channel, and up towards Short Island corner. So they're still about 5k from the bar yet, which is probably another 4 weeks' time. They'll progress out. And for the gentleman with the kayak, mate, if there's a kayak there, I'll be probably fishing in the Broadwater around Crab and all that, or the northern banks, not too far up for you to go. And definitely focus, if you're going out the Pin, I'd put it in probably Jacobs. And from Dinner Island, which is just in front of Calypso Bay there, from there all the way down towards the Pin bar sort of thing. Bit of a paddle, but maybe 3k's, something like that. There's plenty of areas to try. Yep. And guys, don't be scared do be scared if you get caught in there. But if you find a creek you know you can get into comfortably at half in tide and obviously get out on the half out tide, a lot of those creeks might be shallow, get in, but they open up quite big and deep. And last year, the Flathead Classic, was it when Tommy get the year before?
Year before.
Yeah, year before. So the Flathead Classic, to win the Flathead Classic and be up in the top couple scores, you need to average probably around about 50 fish a day. and the fish need to be averaging maybe 10 under 40 and the rest over 40 and a couple of 80s and 70s then amongst it. So to do that, it's quite a lot of good fishing, right? 2.5 days, you're talking 120 fish around about. And many of them have been one up in those back block creeks where not many people go, and the fish at low tide, the people are sort of locked in there, but they know in another 3 hours they can get back out again, and they'll fish all those back drains and areas that might only be 1.5 meters deep, but all the fish are in there because they've got nowhere to go. They're trapped, and they just eat feed, and that's how they catch them. Sometimes it's a bit risky though if you're fishing comp, but a bit risky if you get boats too big, you get stuck in there.
Sorry, I lost.
Get stuck in the sandbank, and me too. But anyhow, guys, does that all make sense? Yep. Okay. Good. Okay, so no one's asked Stewie how he flicks his rod when he's using soft plastic. Can you show him, please, Stewie?
It depends on the lure. But look, I always just like to wind down so I've got no slack in the line, so I'm tight. And I work it pretty hard. I'm like I'll wind as well. So I'll go like flick, 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 like maybe 3. And then I'll let it hit the bottom again and then flick, flick, flick. Yeah. Hold the rod pretty low. I don't hold it too high. Pretty low. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how he does it because I watch him all the time. Yeah, and he gets fish.
So would you say you have a faster technique? Faster?
Yeah.
Faster than mine, much faster.
Yeah. If you can get 2 or 3 casts into someone else, you got 2 or 3 chances more of catching fish. Yeah.
What's your action, Doug?
I was waiting for someone to ask. Thank you. So, as I said, work out my casting, which direction, the current, and the wind, everything else. I'll cast it out. I do a fairly long cast most times, unless I've got a short bank or whatever. And even if I'm close to the shoreline, sometimes the bank will be out just there and it's weedy or whatever, and I'll drop down pretty quick. It might be 1.5 meters, 2 meters deep right where we are here, and that's the sand just there. Sometimes I'll only be like from here to the light out from the shoreline, and I'll do a 20 or 30 metre cast up in the current and work it all the way back along the edge. Depends on where I am. And other times I'll be 30 metres out from the bank and there's not much movement in the current, I can nearly move it all the way back sideways. And there's a lot of weed on the bottom and patches, I'll like to work it all the way back to the boat, depending on, again. But I'll cast it out, I let it hit the bottom. I always watch the braid. When the braid stops, it's hit the bottom. I believe at that point, it's when you're trying to emulate a little dead fish or a wounded fish. So he's fallen down, he's hit the bottom, and as he hits the bottom, he tries to bounce back up again. I try and get that timing perfect, if that makes sense. So I watch it, it hits the bottom. At that point, I'll just take out the slack and real quickly just work it. But I don't work it quick like Stu does. My action's like quite weird. So it's like I move it up and down at the same time and drop it back down. And a lot of times when you drop it down, you get the dunk and it gets ripped out of your hand. So then I'll take the slack up again, and then just 1, 2, 3. And sometimes I'll just give it an extra couple at the top, then drop back down again. So it's like very plain. Yeah, so if you look at the water, it actually goes up and down at the same time. A bit like Stewie sort of working it, he's winding, he's pulling up like that. I'm just sitting on the one end, slowly lifting it up a little bit. It's not really doing much. My rod's getting high, but it's actually not going, the lure's not going that high at the bottom, it's actually getting pulled towards you a bit, if that makes sense? Yeah, because it's slow, that's right, it's slow. So it's like swimming in the water sort of thing. And then when I drop it, especially if I'm using a shrimp, it'll just glide back down to the bottom. Then take out the slack again. I fish my drag fairly tight when I'm fishing an area where I know the fish are fairly decent. Like that tight, if you get say a 45 centimetre one on, it surfs straight to the top without pulling the drag off.
So you're not reeling on the down stroke?
No, I don't even touch the handle. I do a weird way. Don't you see it, show it?
Yeah, that's fully.
The Stu always looks at me and goes, "You're weird." So I'll go 1, 2, 3, and then as I drop it, I spin the handle. And you know what that does? It makes it glide even more. So when because it's got freeness, right? And when I spin the handle, it'll take out the slack and then it'll pull it just that little bit. And that's when it gets hit. So everyone has a technique that works, and that's what works for me. Stewie's way is the way he does it, sort of, watching him do it, And we went out with our friend Tim the other day. She showed the technique.
He's got a weird act. No, I want to keep this to himself for a little bit.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I don't want to tell him.
Okay.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Sorry, guys, next year. Come back.
Because you know why? Because he outfished us.
Both of us. Keep this one pretty tight to my chest.
Tim does a lot of fishing. He's a bit of an apprentice, but it was pretty.
It was different.
It's
It
the
was
same
very
thing he does jigging. Yeah. Anyhow, it's different. I don't know if I could do it that way.
I'm going to give it a go.
I think it's not stretched down enough. But anyhow, so guys, just try it. So 1, 2, 3, maybe hop the last one maybe 2 times extra. Drop it back down. As you drop back down, spin the handle. Don't even touch it. It'll go dunk, and you got to quickly grab the handle. Make sure you grab the handle in the right position because it'll be spinning, free spinning. You got to grab it at the right position, and then once you got it, you got it. And that's the technique I use. And my rods are very similar to this rod here, and Stewie's rods are very similar as well. So keeping it small, 2,500 size, 2 to 5 kilo stick. Years ago, I used to use constantly only a sort of 4 to 6 kilo or 5 to 7 kilos, sort of 8 to 14 pound. And I'd fish 15 pound braid, and I'd fish 1/2 ounce jig heads, but I'd changed. I've gone a lot lighter and tend to get a lot more fish now. Everything, lighter line, lighter jig heads, and lighter rod and outfit. Okay, that's it. Okay, so we've got to, we'll do the draw first, and then we'll talk about the competition. Okay, we'll do the draw first. Any other questions, guys?
Doug, is that being on sale as a combo or just a rod?
It's on sale as a combo. I won't talk about it on air because it's a super duper deal for you guys. So, is that all right? Sorry, I'll tell you in a moment. Okay, so tonight we've got just over $1,500 worth of gear, guys. Okay, so tonight your bags, I think it's around about 140, 150 bucks worth, plus S Factor's thrown in a brag mat for you as well. But there's a competition we're going to run with that, so I'll tell you about that once we turn it off as well. Okay. Okay, so first prize $500 in product. Didn't quite get that last bit, did I?
And it's number 8. Sign up front side.
Well done, mate. See, coming last, mate, comes first. Cheers, mate. Guys, just one thing I didn't talk about is netting a fish. Now, okay, Stewie, got to bring this out, mate. You got to give dirt on me.
I've got heaps of dirt on you.
Okay, Stewie's a good netter. He's a very good netter. Okay, so he's terrible. But anyhow, make sure your net's deep. Really important, guys. Okay, it's got to be deep. So a lot of these rubber nets, when they first come out, they were like that. Okay, that was the size of it, and they just fall. They hit it and fall back out again. You need it to go down inside. So any fish up to about 90 in that net will be fine. The entrance on this particular one's a little bit small, but if you're not about netting, it's quite easy.
Dougie must be bad at netting.
That wasn't had the dig at you, mate.
Dougie must be bad at netting.
So the rubber ones are easy to get your hooks out of, particularly if you're using trolling lures. But in saying that, that one there's through the gold handle one.
Yeah, this is the best net ever, I reckon.
This is our biggest seller, okay? So they do get, the jig heads are fine, so they get tangled up in it. It is actually rubber coated, but little trebles do get caught up in it, but you just don't miss with this net. And I've caught plenty of high 80s and low 90s in this net over the years. It holds itself good in the water. It's very quick in the water. So you get that like an environet style. I did one here somewhere. Oh, they're not there yet, sorry, Stu. Like this style here. You know, great for the fish and whatever. But that style, but in bigger versions, of course. The full mesh one made of this stuff here is okay. It's still not as quick as that, but it's not too bad. But anything with that type of stuff on it, useless. Okay? They're just too slow in the water, and a lot of those bigger fish are very quick at, you get them up to the top, and as soon as they see you or whatever, or the net, they'll go straight with the current. At that point, you should have netted it with the other net. But if you don't get that one opportunity, you will not get it, unless you're really strong, against the current, you will not get this net moving that fast in the water. Okay, so if you're fishing in areas where there's not much current, and say on top of those flats and stuff like that, that might be all right. But wherever there's current around along Klinger Bank or something like that, useless. So make sure you get a good net. How do you net a good flatty? How do you do it right? It's just a matter of timing. So just try and get it as close as you can to the boat, and try and get the guy to have a quick scoop. It's got to be quick. That's the important part. But you can easily knock a flatty off a lure. So you can't just take a shot and hit it and pull it off the lure because your mate won't talk to you forever. So don't do that. The next one. Okay, next one's about $300 for the gear. I'll say the gear quickly this time. Stewie, oh, right at the front row, number 1. Well done, matey. I knew it was one of you too. I don't know which one. Congratulations, matey. Thank you. Cheers, mate. Okay, next one I think still about $200 worth, a bit more. Number 37 down the back now. Must be the last one. Is there 37 here tonight?
36.
No, 36. Oh, okay. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry about 36 as well. 36 is in there. Okay. I'll keep the redraw. I pulled 36 would be pretty rare. Midfield, 15. Well done, buddy. Good on you, buddy. Thanks, mate. Okay, next one, fourth, I think was, I'm trying to remember, I think it was around $150 worth or something. Stewie.
Up the front somewhere again, number 5.
Well done, buddy. Thanks, mate. Cheers, mate. Okay, next one's 5th, I think still over $100, around about that, a bit over. It's okay. So we've got 8 prizes tonight in total. This is a close 14. Redraw. Number 14, Dave. That's you, mate. Well done, buddy. Thanks, mate. My dad. Okay. Next one. Oh, Stu, your turn, mate. Oh, Masaka, your turn. Okay, Stu.
It's down the back somewhere, 35.
Well done, mate. Close, matey. I'll have to give you something, I think. I'll get Masako to pass it to you, mate.
Cheers.
No, sorry, mate.
I got a buy.
Okay, next one. I think it's still around $80 or 70 something bucks. 22 midfield. Well done, mate. Masaka, do you mind to pass it to the gentleman? Thank you. Stu, mate. This is the last one, I think.
It's number 4.
Jeez, I can't believe that. 3 out of the front 4. Chris, I don't know how you missed out, mate. Oh, you missed out too, didn't I? No, you did. Sorry, guys. Okay, gentlemen down the back. That should have been you, maybe not, maybe you. What can I give you? Okay, Stu. I'll work out something with you. Come up here when we're finished, if you don't mind. Okay, guys. So we're going to now tell you about a couple of things. Firstly, is the brag mat deal. So yeah. So everyone, thanks for watching. So the brag mat